Your procrastination isn't a character flaw. It's a sophisticated defense mechanism your brain has created to protect you. In the next few hours, you'll discover how to transform this hidden power into your greatest productivity weapon, finally killing your excuses and taking control of your life. The Productivity Code. Audiobook. Introduction. Your heart pounds as you stare at the clock. Another deadline looms, and despite promising yourself just 5 more minutes an hour ago, you haven't typed a single word. The weight of unfinished tasks crushes your chest while guilt and anxiety wage war in your mind. You know this feeling all too well, the paralysis of procrastination. But what if everything you've been told about procrastination is wrong? Your tendency to put things off isn't a character flaw or moral failing. It's actually a sophisticated defense mechanism your brain has developed. And once you understand its true purpose, you can transform this supposed weakness into your greatest strength. Forget everything you know about time management systems, productivity hacks, and willpower. Those surface-level solutions miss the deeper truth. Procrastination is your mind's way of flagging misalignments between your conscious goals and subconscious patterns. Through groundbreaking research in neuroscience and behavioral psychology, you'll discover how to decode these signals using the momentum matrix, a revolutionary framework that explains why some days you're unstoppable while others feel impossible. You'll learn to deploy the resistance radar, a powerful tool that helps you identify the true source of your procrastination patterns. Instead of fighting against your natural rhythms, you'll work with them, creating an effortless flow state that makes productivity feel automatic. This isn't about becoming a different person. It's about understanding yourself better and harnessing the hidden power of your procrastination instinct. Get ready to transform your relationship with time, motivation, and achievement forever. Chapter 1. The Protection Paradox. Your fingers hover over the keyboard, frozen in the harsh glow of your laptop screen. It's 3 a.m., and the collection of empty coffee cups surrounding you stands as a monument to your desperation. The project deadline that seemed so distant 3 weeks ago now looms just hours away. Your throat tightens as you calculate the remaining time, knowing deep down it's not enough. This isn't your first time here. The same scene has played out countless times before. Important presentation, crucial report, life-changing opportunity, all reduced to this familiar last-minute panic. You've read the productivity books, downloaded the time management apps, and set countless reminders. Yet here you are again, wondering why you keep doing this to yourself. But what if you're asking the wrong question? What if this pattern isn't a flaw in your character, but a sophisticated defense mechanism? Your brain's misguided attempt to protect you from something it perceives as threatening. The truth about procrastination lies in what psychologists call the procrastination paradox, the counterintuitive fact that we're most likely to procrastinate on tasks that matter most to us, not the ones that are most difficult. This explains why you can easily spend hours organizing your desk or answering emails, but freeze when facing that career-defining presentation or business proposal you're passionate about. Consider Elon Musk's early days with SpaceX. While many assume his ambitious timeline for reaching Mars stems from unwavering confidence, the reality reveals a more complex story. In SpaceX's infancy, Musk frequently delayed crucial decisions about rocket design, not because he lacked knowledge or resources, but because his brain recognized the astronomical stakes involved. Each design choice carried the weight of potential failure, not just for the rockets, but for his entire vision of revolutionizing space travel. The turning point came when Musk recognized that his procrastination wasn't laziness. It was his mind's primitive survival instinct trying to protect him from the perceived threat of massive public failure. This realization allowed him to reframe his delayed decisions as signals of importance rather than personal inadequacy. Instead of fighting his procrastination, he learned to interpret it as a compass pointing toward what mattered most. Your brain operates on similar principles. When faced with tasks that carry emotional significance, whether it's starting a business, writing a book, or having a difficult conversation, your mind activates ancient protective circuits designed to keep you safe from harm. In our evolutionary past, these circuits helped us avoid physical dangers. Today, they misfire by treating important life goals as threats, triggering sophisticated avoidance behaviors we experience as procrastination. Understanding this protection pattern requires looking beyond surface-level productivity advice. The key lies in developing what neuroscientists call metacognitive awareness, the ability to observe and interpret your own thought patterns. When you feel the urge to procrastinate, it's rarely about the task itself. It's about what the task represents: potential failure, judgment, or change. Take Alex, a brilliant software developer who spent months perfecting his revolutionary app but kept finding reasons to delay its launch. His code was flawless, his interface intuitive, yet something kept holding him back. Every time he approached the launch button, he'd discover one more feature to add or one more test to run. Through careful self-observation, Alex realized his procrastination wasn't about the technical aspects of launching. It was his brain's attempt to protect him from the vulnerability of putting his creation into the world. Rather than fighting this instinct, he began treating his procrastination as valuable feedback, a signal highlighting the profound importance of this step in his journey. When Alex reframed his launch anxiety as evidence of how much he cared about his work, rather than a personal failing, something shifted. He started working with his protective instinct instead of against it. Each moment of hesitation became an opportunity to acknowledge the significance of his goal rather than a source of self-judgment. 2 weeks later, he successfully launched his app, which went on to gain over 100,000 downloads in its first month. Your procrastination is trying to tell you something important. That project you keep putting off? Your brain isn't sabotaging you. It's highlighting what matters most. Those tasks that trigger the strongest avoidance response often represent your most significant opportunities for growth and impact. Now it's time to decode your own protection patterns. Here's your challenge for the next 24 hours. Identify the one project or task you've been procrastinating on that matters most to you. Instead of judging yourself for avoiding it, ask, what is my procrastination trying to protect me from? Write down your first honest answer, no matter how irrational it might seem. This simple act of reframing begins the process of transforming your relationship with procrastination from an enemy to be conquered into a signal to be understood. Chapter 2. The Hidden Price Tag. You glance at your bank statement, scanning the usual suspects: coffee runs, streaming subscriptions, that impulse purchase you barely remember. But there's another transaction bleeding your account dry, one that never shows up on any statement. Opening a simple spreadsheet, you start to calculate. That promotion you hesitated to pursue last year, $15,000 in lost income. The investment opportunity you meant to research but never did, $5,000 in potential returns vanished. The side business idea you've been sitting on for 3 years, countless thousands in unrealized revenue. The numbers start small, almost insignificant. But as you project them across a career span, they balloon into staggering sums. An average professional earning $50,000 annually who consistently delays asking for deserved raises loses over $500,000 in lifetime earnings. When you factor in compound interest and missed investment opportunities, the figure often exceeds $2 million. But here's the truth that's even harder to face. money is just the beginning. The real cost of procrastination isn't measured in dollars and cents. It's calculated in dreams deferred, relationships never kindled, and versions of yourself left unexplored. Each day of delay carries an invisible price tag, one that compounds silently until the cost becomes too devastating to ignore. This phenomenon is what behavioral economists call opportunity debt, the accumulating cost of postponed action. Unlike financial debt, which shows up on statements and demands attention, opportunity debt grows in the shadows, often unnoticed until it's too late. Every time you delay a decision or postpone an important task, you're not just putting something off, you're actively accumulating this invisible debt. James Cameron's journey with Avatar provides a masterclass in understanding opportunity debt. In 1994, Cameron wrote an 80-page treatment for what would become the highest-grossing film of all time. But instead of moving forward, he waited. His reasoning seemed logical. The technology needed to realize his vision didn't exist yet. He wanted everything to be perfect. What Cameron didn't anticipate was how that delay would nearly cost him everything. During those 15 years of waiting, other filmmakers began developing similar concepts. Computer animation advanced rapidly, and several studios started working on projects featuring photorealistic alien worlds. Cameron's unique vision was slowly becoming less unique with each passing year. The wake-up call came in 2005 when he learned about multiple projects in development featuring similar themes of humans mentally controlling alien bodies. If he had waited much longer, Avatar might have appeared derivative rather than revolutionary. This realization forced Cameron to confront the true cost of waiting for perfect conditions. The experience transformed Cameron's approach to future projects. When faced with the decision to delay Avatar 2 for better underwater filming technology, he instead chose to innovate with existing tools, developing new filming techniques rather than waiting for someone else to solve the problem. He'd learned that the cost of delay often exceeds the benefit of perfection. This principle extends far beyond filmmaking. Every area of your life operates under the same rules of compound opportunity cost. That difficult conversation you've been avoiding with your partner doesn't just postpone resolution. It allows resentment to grow and alternative solutions to disappear. The health changes you've been meaning to make don't just delay better health. They allow problems to compound and make future changes more difficult. Let's look at Maria, a talented health coach who spent 2 years perfecting her program before actively marketing it. Her procrastination seemed reasonable. She wanted to ensure everything was flawless before putting herself out there. But when she finally calculated the true cost of her delay, the numbers shocked her. Using industry averages, Maria estimated she could have helped at least 100 clients during those 2 years of preparation. At her target rate of $200 per month per client, that represented $240,000 in lost revenue. But the real cost went deeper. Each of those 100 potential clients represented someone struggling with health issues who might have transformed their life through her program. Her procrastination hadn't just cost her money, it had cost others their chance at better health. This realization hit Maria hard. She began tracking what she called her daily procrastination tax, the real cost of each delayed decision or postponed action. Every time she caught herself procrastinating on sending a proposal or following up with a potential client, she calculated the potential lost revenue and impact. This simple practice transformed her business approach. Within 6 months, her client base tripled, not because she worked harder, but because she finally understood the true cost of delay. Your procrastination carries similar hidden costs. Every time you postpone action, you're not just delaying results. You're actively choosing a lower-value future. The promotion you don't pursue, the business you don't start, the relationship you don't nurture. Each represents a compound loss of opportunity that grows larger with time. This isn't about adding pressure or guilt to your life. It's about gaining clarity. When you truly understand the cost of delay, procrastination loses its comfortable facade. Those harmless postponements reveal themselves as active choices with real consequences. The most dangerous aspect of opportunity debt is its invisibility. Unlike financial debt, which demands regular payments and sends warning notices, opportunity debt accumulates silently. You don't feel the pain of the promotion you never pursued or the business you never started. The relationship that never developed can't send you a bill for lost happiness. But just because you can't see this debt doesn't mean it isn't real. Each day of delay is a transaction, an exchange of current comfort for future opportunity. The question isn't whether you're paying this price, it's whether you're aware of how much you're spending. Your challenge for the next 24 hours is this: identify your most expensive procrastination habit, the one thing you've been delaying that costs you the most in terms of money, growth, or life satisfaction. Calculate its true cost over the next 5 years if left unchanged. Be specific and brutal in your honesty. Include not just direct financial impacts, but also lost opportunities, relationships, and personal growth. Write this number down and place it somewhere you'll see it daily. This isn't just a number, it's the price tag of staying comfortable. Chapter 3. Your Ancient Brain's Hidden Agenda. The sun rises over the African savanna 200,000 years ago. Your ancestor crouches in the morning shadows, spear in hand, watching a herd of antelope grazing in the distance. Their stomach growls. It's been 2 days since the last successful hunt. The rational choice seems obvious: attack now while the herd is visible. But something holds them back. That same hesitation you feel before starting an important project. That same urge to delay despite clear benefits. It's there, encoded in their neurons, whispering, "Wait, not yet. Later might be safer." Fast forward to today. You sit at your desk, an important presentation looming. Your modern brain knows you should start now. The deadline is approaching. The consequences of delay are clear. Yet that same ancient whisper emerges. Wait. Not yet. Later might be safer. Your procrastination isn't a character flaw. It's an evolutionary inheritance, a survival mechanism that helped your ancestors navigate a dangerous world where hasty decisions meant death. This isn't just poetic metaphor. It's documented neuroscience. Your brain still operates on code written for a world of immediate physical threats, not long-term project deadlines. When you procrastinate, you're experiencing the echo of survival behaviors that kept your lineage alive long enough to produce you. The battle between your ancient limbic system, emotional, instinctive, focused on immediate survival, and your relatively modern prefrontal cortex, rational, planning-oriented, focused on long-term outcomes, plays out every time you face an important task. Your limbic system, unable to distinguish between physical danger and psychological discomfort, treats that challenging presentation like a potential predator. Procrastination becomes its way of keeping you safe. Michael Phelps, the most decorated Olympian of all time, faced this same neurological tug-of-war early in his career. Despite his natural talent and clear long-term goals, he often found himself procrastinating on morning training sessions. The rational benefits were obvious. Every missed practice meant falling behind competitors. Yet his ancient brain frequently won the battle, leading to missed sessions and growing frustration. The turning point came when Phelps and his coach Bob Bowman stopped fighting against these natural patterns and started working with them. Instead of relying on willpower to overcome his brain's resistance, they created what Bowman called championship behavior, a series of ritualized actions that bypass the limbic system's threat response. They discovered that Phelps' procrastination peaked when facing open-ended training sessions. His ancient brain, designed to conserve energy unless absolutely necessary, balked at undefined exertion. The solution? They broke training into specific, time-bound chunks with clear success metrics. Rather than morning practice, it became 45 minutes of butterfly sprints with target times. This specific framing made the task feel more manageable to his limbic system while engaging his prefrontal cortex's goal-oriented functions. The science behind this approach is fascinating. Research in neuroplasticity shows that our brains can form new neural pathways that essentially bypass our procrastination triggers. We can't eliminate our ancient survival programming, but we can create alternative routes around it. This understanding transforms how we approach productivity. Instead of fighting against your brain's natural patterns, you can work with them. Your procrastination isn't the enemy. It's valuable feedback about how your brain processes certain tasks as threats. Observe Jordan, a doctoral candidate who spent 2 years struggling with his dissertation. Every time he sat down to write, his brain's threat response activated, triggering sophisticated avoidance behaviors. He tried everything from productivity apps to accountability partners, but nothing stuck. The breakthrough came when Jordan started treating his brain like an ancient survival machine instead of a broken productivity tool. He noticed his procrastination peaked when facing large, abstract writing tasks. His limbic system couldn't process "write dissertation chapter" as anything but a threat, but it could handle "write one paragraph about the experiment results." Jordan developed what he called micro-missions, breaking each writing session into concrete, 25-minute tasks with specific outputs. Instead of work on dissertation, his daily schedule became write 3 paragraphs describing methodology, or summarize 2 research papers. This approach spoke to both his ancient and modern brain, specific enough to avoid triggering the limbic system's threat response, yet productive enough to satisfy the prefrontal cortex's goal-oriented needs. The results were remarkable. Not only did Jordan complete his dissertation ahead of schedule, but he also experienced less stress and anxiety throughout the process. By working with his brain's natural patterns instead of against them, he transformed procrastination from an obstacle into a productivity tool. This approach reveals a crucial truth. Your procrastination patterns contain valuable information about how your brain processes different types of tasks. When you procrastinate, your ancient brain is trying to tell you something. Maybe the task feels too ambiguous, too threatening to your status, or too disconnected from immediate rewards. Instead of fighting these signals, you can use them to design better work strategies. The key lies in understanding your personal threat triggers, the specific task characteristics that activate your limbic system's avoidance response. These triggers are highly individual, shaped by both evolutionary programming and personal experience. Some common patterns include: your brain treats abstract tasks as threats because, from an evolutionary perspective, ambiguity equals danger. The more concrete and specific you can make a task, the less resistance you'll encounter. Tasks without clear endpoints trigger your brain's energy conservation instincts. Your ancestors couldn't afford to expend energy without a clear purpose. Adding specific time limits and success criteria makes tasks feel safer to your ancient brain. Your limbic system responds strongly to social threats, often treating potential failure or judgment as seriously as physical danger. Breaking tasks into private, low-stakes components can help bypass this response. Understanding these patterns allows you to design work strategies that align with your brain's natural tendencies, rather than fight against them. This isn't about tricking yourself. It's about creating environments and approaches that work with your evolutionary programming, instead of against it. The next 24 hours present a perfect opportunity to put this understanding into practice. Your challenge is to become an observer of your own ancient brain. Choose one important task you've been postponing and track your exact thoughts and physical sensations when you consider working on it. What specific aspects trigger your avoidance response? Is it the task's size, its ambiguity, the potential for judgment? Don't try to change anything yet. Just observe and document. This awareness alone will begin to shift your relationship with procrastination, transforming it from a frustrating obstacle into a source of valuable insight about how your brain processes challenges. Tomorrow, these observations will become the foundation for designing work strategies that align with your brain's natural patterns rather than fight against them. Chapter 4. The Motivation Myth. You stare at your New Year's resolutions list from January, a familiar wave of disappointment washing over you. It's only March, but those ambitious goals already feel like distant dreams. You're not alone. 92% of resolution makers abandon their plans by February. By June, that number climbs to 97%. But here's the surprising truth. These failures aren't due to lack of willpower or poor planning. They stem from a fundamental misunderstanding of how human behavior actually works. Think about your own pattern. How many times have you told yourself, "I'll start when I feel more motivated," or "I just need to find my inspiration"? This seemingly logical approach is actually sabotaging your success. The motivation myth, the belief that we need to feel inspired before taking action, has become one of the most pervasive and destructive forces in personal development. The science is clear. Motivation isn't the precursor to action. It's the result of it. Your brain's reward systems are wired to release dopamine, not before you act, but during and after. Waiting for motivation is like waiting for a car to start moving before turning the key in the ignition. It fundamentally misunderstands the mechanism of change. Consider Stephen King's journey before he became one of the world's most prolific authors. In 1973, King was working as a high school janitor, struggling to support his young family on $6,400 a year. He had a dream of becoming a writer, but faced the same challenge many aspiring creators encounter: finding the motivation to write after exhausting shifts of physical labor. The turning point came when King made a crucial realization. During his breaks between cleaning classrooms, he'd wait for inspiration to strike, hoping to feel that mythical surge of creative energy. But day after day, that surge never came. His breakthrough happened when he stopped waiting and started writing anyway, even when he felt completely depleted. King began carrying a notebook, forcing himself to write at least one paragraph during each break, regardless of how tired or uninspired he felt. The first few days were mechanical, almost painful. But something unexpected happened. The very act of writing, even when it felt hollow, began generating its own momentum. The more he wrote, the more he wanted to write. This is how Carrie was born, not in grand bursts of inspiration, but in stolen moments between cleaning toilets and sweeping floors. King discovered what neuroscience would later confirm. Motivation isn't a prerequisite for action, it's a byproduct of it. This insight became the foundation of his famous "write every day" approach, leading to an extraordinary output of over 60 novels. The science behind this phenomenon is fascinating. When you take action, even small steps, your brain releases small amounts of dopamine. This neurochemical response creates a positive feedback loop. The more you do, the better you feel, which makes you want to do more. It's a biological momentum machine that runs on action, not intention. This understanding transforms how we approach change. Instead of waiting for motivation to strike, successful people build systems that generate motivation through consistent action. They understand that feeling follows function. You don't have to feel good to get going. You have to get going to feel good. Nina, an aspiring novelist, discovered this truth after years of struggling with writer's block. She had always imagined writing would flow naturally when inspiration struck, but found herself trapped in an endless cycle of waiting for the right feeling. Her breakthrough came when she abandoned the search for inspiration entirely. Instead of waiting to feel motivated, Nina created a simple system. Write 300 words every morning, regardless of quality or inspiration. The first week was excruciating. Her writing felt forced, mechanical, and lifeless. But by week 2, something shifted. The act of showing up daily, even when it felt pointless, began generating its own momentum. Nina's approach focused on process rather than outcome. Instead of trying to write a great novel, she committed to the simple act of putting words on paper. Within 6 months, she had completed her first manuscript, not because she felt constantly inspired, but because she had built a system that generated motivation through action. This principle extends far beyond writing. Whether you're trying to build a business, get in shape, or learn a new skill, waiting for motivation is a recipe for stagnation. The key is to start with actions so small they bypass your brain's resistance mechanisms entirely. Consider the difference between these two approaches. Motivation, first approach. Wait to feel energized and inspired before going to the gym. Result, sporadic workouts dependent on fleeting emotional states. Action first approach. Put on your workout clothes immediately after waking up, regardless of how you feel. Result, consistent exercise habit built on behavioral triggers rather than emotional states. The action-first approach works because it acknowledges a crucial truth. Your brain is designed to conserve energy and avoid unnecessary effort. By waiting for motivation, you're fighting against your basic neurological wiring. But by taking small, consistent actions, you work with your brain's natural tendency to build and maintain momentum. This understanding leads to a revolutionary approach to productivity. Instead of trying to generate motivation to overcome procrastination, focus on building momentum through minimal viable actions. Don't wait to feel ready to start your project. Take the smallest possible step right now. The power of this approach lies in its ability to bypass your brain's threat response system. When you focus on tiny actions instead of overwhelming goals, you slip under the radar of your own resistance. Each small success builds confidence and creates momentum for the next step. The key is understanding that motivation isn't something you find. It's something you create through deliberate action. Every time you take action before feeling ready, you strengthen the neural pathways that make future action easier. You're literally rewiring your brain's response patterns through consistent behavior. Your challenge for the next 60 seconds is this. Identify the smallest possible step towards your most procrastinated goal. It should be so tiny it feels almost ridiculous. Opening a document, putting on running shoes, or writing a single sentence. Now, before you finish reading this sentence, take that step. Don't think about it. Don't plan it. Don't wait to feel ready. Just act. The motivation you're waiting for is waiting for you on the other side of that action. Chapter 5. Your Procrastination Personality. You're sitting at your desk staring at 2 identical tasks due tomorrow. The first feels impossible because it's not perfect enough yet. The second remains untouched because deep down, you're afraid of what success might mean. Same deadline, same work, completely different reasons for delay. This isn't just a hypothetical scenario. It's a powerful demonstration of why most productivity advice fails. When it comes to procrastination, one size doesn't just fail to fit all. It can actually make things worse. Think about the last time you tried to follow generic productivity advice. Maybe you attempted the Pomodoro technique, only to find yourself more anxious about the ticking clock. Or perhaps you tried breaking tasks into smaller chunks, but ended up with an overwhelming list that sent you straight to social media for relief. These weren't failures of willpower. They were mismatches between solutions, and your unique procrastination personality. The truth is, procrastination isn't a uniform behavior. It's a sophisticated response pattern that varies dramatically between individuals. Research has shown that people who appear to be procrastinating in identical ways often have completely different underlying motivations and triggers. Understanding your specific type isn't just helpful, it's essential for creating lasting change. Jerry Seinfeld's early career offers a fascinating window into this principle. Before becoming one of comedy's most successful figures, Seinfeld struggled intensely with writing consistency. The common advice at the time, setting strict schedules and detailed outlines, actually made his procrastination worse. His breakthrough came when he realized his specific procrastination pattern wasn't rooted in perfectionism or laziness, but in feeling overwhelmed by the endless nature of creative work. This insight led to his famous "don't break the chain" method. Rather than focusing on writing quality or quantity, Seinfeld simply marked an X on a calendar. For each day, he wrote something, anything. This system worked because it matched his specific procrastination personality, an overloader who needed to transform overwhelming tasks into manageable, continuous progress. The key wasn't the calendar method itself, it was the alignment between the solution and his specific procrastination type. When Seinfeld tried sharing his system with other comedians, he noticed something interesting. It worked brilliantly for some while failing completely for others. This observation aligns with modern psychological research, showing that procrastination manifests in 4 distinct personality types. The perfectionist delays action until conditions are ideal, paralyzed by the gap between vision and reality. Their procrastination masquerades as high standards, but actually stems from fear of imperfection. The adventurer postpones tasks that feel too routine or structured, seeking novelty and excitement. Their procrastination appears as distraction, but actually reflects a need for variety and engagement. The self-saboteur unconsciously delays success to maintain a comfortable self-image or avoid increased expectations. Their procrastination looks like laziness, but actually serves as a protective mechanism. The overloader becomes paralyzed by the sheer volume of tasks or possibilities, leading to analysis paralysis. Their procrastination presents as indecision, but actually stems from mental overwhelm. Understanding these patterns transforms how we approach productivity. Instead of fighting against your natural tendencies, you can design systems that work with them. This isn't about excusing procrastination. It's about addressing its true causes rather than just its symptoms. The science behind this approach is compelling. Studies in neuropsychology show that when productivity strategies align with an individual's natural cognitive patterns, success rates increase by up to 300%. It's like trying to sail. You'll make much more progress working with the wind's direction than fighting against it. Miguel, a talented graphic designer, discovered this truth after years of struggling with traditional productivity methods. Every morning, he'd write detailed to-do lists and schedule his day in precise blocks, approaches that should work according to conventional wisdom. Yet he found himself constantly procrastinating, jumping between tasks, and feeling increasingly frustrated with his apparent lack of discipline. The turning point came when Miguel realized he was an adventurer type, someone who needs variety and spontaneity to maintain engagement. His rigid scheduling system wasn't just ineffective, it was actively triggering his procrastination response by making work feel constrained and monotonous. Miguel redesigned his workflow to match his personality type. Instead of fixed schedules, he created a flexible project rotation system. He'd work on each client project in 45-minute bursts, switching between different types of design work to maintain novelty. This approach seemed counterintuitive. Conventional wisdom suggests focusing on one task until completion. But for Miguel's adventurer personality, it was transformative. Within a month, his productivity had doubled. More importantly, his enjoyment of work increased significantly. He wasn't fighting his natural tendencies anymore. He was channeling them productively. This is the power of aligning solutions with your specific procrastination type. Your challenge now is to identify your primary procrastination personality. Think about your 3 most recent instances of procrastination. For each situation, ask yourself, what was I actually avoiding? Was it the possibility of imperfection, the monotony of the task, the implications of success, the overwhelming nature of the project? Pattern your responses against the 4 types. If you consistently delay until conditions feel perfect, you're likely a perfectionist. If you procrastinate most on routine or structured tasks, you're probably an adventurer. If you tend to delay right before potential breakthroughs, you might be a self-saboteur. If you freeze when facing multiple tasks or decisions, you're likely an overloader. Take exactly 1 minute now to reflect on your most recent procrastination episode. Don't just identify the behavior, understand its underlying motivation. This insight is your first step toward designing a productivity system that works with your natural tendencies rather than against them. Chapter 6. The Fear Behind the Delay. The crowd roars as Muhammad Ali and Chuck Wepner circle each other in the 15th round of their 1975 heavyweight championship bout. Wepner, the heavy underdog who has shocked everyone by lasting this long, sees an opening, a clear shot that could change boxing history. For a split second, his body tenses to strike, but he hesitates. That microscopic moment of doubt is all Ali needs. Seconds later, Wepner is on the canvas, his one shot at glory evaporated in an instant of fear-driven hesitation. You know this moment. Not in a boxing ring, perhaps, but in those critical instances when opportunity presents itself. The perfect moment to pitch your idea in a meeting. The ideal time to start that business. The right second to share your work with the world. And just like Wepner, you feel that familiar hesitation. That split-second pause that stretches into hours, days, weeks of delay. What you're experiencing isn't procrastination, at least not in the way you think. It's fear wearing a convincing disguise. That's why traditional productivity advice fails so often. You can't solve a fear problem with a time management solution. Research has revealed something fascinating. The brain activation patterns during procrastination are nearly identical to those observed during fear responses. When you put off an important task, you're not being lazy. You're experiencing a sophisticated survival response that's simply being triggered in the wrong context. Lady Gaga's journey with her debut album, The Fame, offers a powerful illustration of this principle. Despite having enough material for multiple albums and a clear path to release, she found herself constantly tweaking songs, claiming they weren't ready. On the surface, this looked like perfectionism or professional thoroughness. But during a breakthrough session with her producer, she identified the real issue. She was terrified of success. I realized I wasn't actually fixing the songs anymore, she later revealed in an interview. I was hiding from what would happen when people heard them. This fear of success, of the changes and expectations that would come with achieving her dreams, had disguised itself as professional perfectionism. Once she identified the true source of her hesitation, she was able to complete and release the album within weeks. The pattern is clear. Fear doesn't usually present itself as fear. Instead, it shows up as seemingly rational justifications. I need more preparation often means I'm afraid of being judged. The timing isn't right frequently translates to I'm afraid of success. I should do more research can mask I'm afraid of making mistakes. This insight transforms how we approach procrastination. Instead of trying to force yourself to work through sheer willpower, you can learn to decode these fear signals and address their root causes. The key lies in developing what psychologists call fear literacy, the ability to recognize and interpret your fear responses accurately. When you understand that procrastination is often fear in disguise, you can start using it as valuable feedback rather than fighting it as an enemy. Your delays become data points, helping you identify which fears are actually directing your behavior. Kai, a gifted chef with 15 years of experience in some of New York's finest restaurants, kept delaying opening his own establishment despite having the skills, savings, and support network to succeed. Every time he got close to signing a lease, he'd find logical reasons to back out. The location wasn't perfect, the timing wasn't ideal, the concept needed more refinement. Through careful self-examination, Kai realized these weren't actual obstacles. They were manifestations of his core fear, judgment. Having worked in prestigious kitchens his entire career, he was terrified of being judged as a restaurant owner rather than a chef. His procrastination wasn't protecting him from failure. It was preventing him from facing this deeper fear. The breakthrough came when Kai started using what he called his fear flip technique. Instead of trying to eliminate his fear of judgment, he used it as a compass. Whenever he felt the urge to delay a decision, he asked himself, "What judgment am I actually afraid of here?" This simple question transformed his fear from a barrier into a guide, helping him identify and address specific concerns rather than avoiding them entirely. Within 6 months of this realization, Kai had signed a lease, developed his concept, and opened his restaurant. The fear of judgment didn't disappear, but it no longer had the power to paralyze him through procrastination. His restaurant is now one of Brooklyn's most celebrated new establishments. The science behind this approach is compelling. Studies show that when we accurately identify our fears, the amygdala, our brain's fear center, actually reduces its activity. It's as if naming the fear partially disarms it. This is why vague anxieties often feel more overwhelming than specific identified fears. Your procrastination patterns are trying to tell you something important about your fears. Each delay is a breadcrumb leading back to a core fear that needs addressing. The key is learning to follow this trail with curiosity rather than judgment. Take a moment right now to identify your most significant current procrastination. What important task or decision have you been delaying? Now, ask yourself these questions. What would actually happen if I succeeded completely at this task? What's the worst judgment I might face if I move forward? What identity or belief about myself am I protecting by delaying? Your answers will likely reveal that your procrastination isn't about the task itself. It's about what the task represents or what completing it might mean for your identity, relationships, or future obligations. Here's your challenge. Choose your most feared procrastinated task. Instead of trying to overcome the fear, simply name it with complete specificity. What exactly are you afraid might happen? Write it down in a single, clear sentence. Then commit to taking one tiny action toward this task while fully acknowledging this fear's presence. Don't try to make the fear go away. Just let it be there while you act anyway. This isn't about conquering fear. It's about learning to read its messages accurately so you can respond with wisdom rather than avoidance. Your fear isn't your enemy. It's just speaking a language you haven't fully learned to understand yet. Chapter 7. The 10-Second Revolution. You're sitting at your desk right now, and in this exact moment, two parallel universes are unfolding. In one, you're already 20 minutes deep into a state of flow, ideas flowing effortlessly as you make unprecedented progress on your project. In the other, you're still staring at that blank screen, caught in the familiar web of hesitation and self-doubt. The fascinating truth? These drastically different outcomes stem from a single 10-second decision you made, or didn't make, just half an hour ago. This isn't theoretical. Neuroscience has revealed that the most crucial moment in any task isn't in the middle, when you're deep in the work. It's not even at the end, when you're racing toward completion. The moment that determines everything, your success, your productivity, your sense of accomplishment, is contained within the first 10 seconds of starting. The human brain processes task initiation completely differently from task continuation. When you're already in motion, your neural pathways operate with remarkable efficiency. But the moment of starting triggers a unique cascade of neural activity that can either launch you into action or lock you into paralysis. Usain Bolt, the fastest human in history, understood this principle intimately. While most people focus on his explosive speed, his true mastery lay in something far more subtle: his starting ritual. Early in his career, Bolt struggled with false starts and inconsistent race beginnings. The pressure of the Olympics loomed, and he knew that even a millisecond's hesitation at the start could cost him everything. Working with his coach, Bolt developed what he called his trigger sequence, a precise 10-second ritual that preceded every race. This wasn't just stretching or warming up. It was a carefully choreographed series of movements and mental cues that bypassed his brain's natural resistance to explosive action. The results were stunning. Not only did he eliminate false starts, but his reaction times became consistently faster than his competitors. The secret isn't in the running, Bolt later revealed. It's in those moments before the gun. By the time I hear that sound, my body's already decided to move. This insight transformed his approach to racing and led to his unprecedented dominance in sprinting. The science behind this phenomenon is fascinating. Research has shown that the brain requires significantly more energy to initiate an action than to continue it. This activation energy principle, borrowed from chemistry, explains why starting feels disproportionately difficult compared to maintaining momentum. Think about pushing a heavy boulder. The force required to start it rolling is massive, but once it's in motion, maintaining that movement requires far less effort. Your brain operates on the same principle. The neural pathways involved in starting a task demand approximately 40% more glucose than those involved in continuing it. This explains why you can work for hours once you've started, but those first few moments feel like pushing against an invisible wall. This insight transforms how we approach productivity. Instead of focusing on maintaining motivation throughout a task, the key is to lower the activation energy required to start. This is where the concept of starting rituals becomes powerful. Olivia, a freelance graphic designer in Portland, struggled with project initiation for years. She'd spend hours in what she called pre-work purgatory, checking emails, reorganizing her desk, anything to avoid that moment of actually beginning her design work. Her breakthrough came when she discovered the 10-second rule. "I created what I call my power sequence," she explains. "It's ridiculously simple. I put on my blue light glasses, take 3 deep breaths, and double-click my project file. That's it. 10 seconds max. But it's specific enough that my brain now recognizes it as the signal to begin." The results were transformative. By removing the ambiguity from the starting process, Olivia reduced her average project initiation time from 45 minutes to under 1 minute. Her revenue doubled within 6 months, not because she worked more hours, but because she wasted less time in that critical starting phase. The key to creating an effective starting ritual lies in its specificity and brevity. Many people make the mistake of creating elaborate pre-work routines that actually become new forms of procrastination. The ideal starting ritual should take no more than 10 seconds and involve clear physical actions that can't be rationalized or delayed. This approach works because it bypasses the brain's natural tendency to overanalyze starting points. When you establish a clear, consistent signal to your brain that work is about to begin, you sidestep the energy-intensive decision-making process that often leads to procrastination. The neural mechanics are straightforward. Repeated pairing of a specific action sequence with task initiation creates a strong neural pathway. Over time, This pathway becomes so efficient that the mere beginning of your starting ritual triggers the brain's task initiation response automatically, similar to how Pavlov's dogs began salivating at the mere sound of a bell. Your brain is already using this mechanism, whether you realize it or not. Think about what happens when you sit down on your couch and reach for the TV remote, or when you get into your car and put on your seatbelt. These actions trigger automatic behavioral sequences because they've been consistently paired with specific outcomes. The challenge now is to harness this same neural mechanism for productivity instead of distraction. This is where the concept of ritual design becomes crucial. An effective starting ritual has three key components: physical anchors that engage your body in a specific way, like putting on particular glasses or sitting in a designated chair; a precise sequence that's simple enough to complete in 10 seconds or less; a clear endpoint that signals the transition into work mode. The power of this approach lies in its simplicity. You're not trying to generate motivation or overcome resistance. You're simply creating a neural shortcut that makes starting automatic. Chapter 8: The Energy Paradox. Your legs feel like lead weights, sweat drips from every pore, and your lungs burn with each breath. By every conventional measure, you're completely exhausted. Yet somehow, in this moment of physical depletion, your mind snaps into extraordinary clarity. Complex problems that stumped you for weeks suddenly reveal elegant solutions. This isn't imagination, it's science. In a groundbreaking study, marathon runners who had just completed a grueling 26.2-mile race demonstrated a remarkable 32% improvement in creative problem solving compared to their well-rested baseline. This discovery shatters everything we thought we knew about human energy management. It reveals a fascinating paradox. Sometimes physical exhaustion can unlock peak mental performance. But why? The answer lies in understanding the complex relationship between physical and psychological energy, two distinct systems that often operate in counterintuitive ways. Think of your energy like a house's electrical system. While the total power available might be finite, different circuits operate independently. You can have the basement lights completely dark while the upstairs blazes with activity. Your physical and psychological energy work in a similar way. They're connected, but separate systems, each with its own rules and patterns. This insight revolutionized how Richard Branson approaches his demanding role as leader of the Virgin Group. Early in his career, Branson noticed something peculiar during his stays on Necker Island. Despite pushing himself through intense morning workouts that left him physically drained, he found himself making sharper business decisions and maintaining better focus during crucial meetings. Initially, this seemed to defy logic. Conventional wisdom suggested that conserving physical energy would leave more resources for mental tasks. But Branson's experience suggested the opposite. He began experimenting with this pattern, systematically tracking how different types of physical activity affected his mental performance. The results were striking. On days when he started with vigorous exercise, whether kite surfing, tennis, or swimming, his ability to handle complex business challenges actually improved. The physical exertion seemed to activate rather than deplete his psychological resources. This discovery led him to restructure his entire approach to energy management across his various companies. Most people try to conserve energy by remaining still, Branson noted in his journal, but I found that physical movement creates a kind of mental momentum that carries through the entire day. He began scheduling his most demanding strategic meetings and decision-making sessions for the hours immediately following intense physical activity. The science behind this phenomenon reveals fascinating insights about human performance. Physical exertion triggers the release of brain-derived neurotrophic factor, BDNF, often called miracle grow for the brain. This protein enhances cognitive function, particularly in areas related to problem-solving and decision-making. Additionally, vigorous physical activity increases blood flow to the brain, improving oxygen delivery and enhancing mental clarity. But the relationship between physical and psychological energy goes deeper than just biochemistry. Each person has unique energy patterns that, once understood, can be leveraged for maximum effectiveness. The key lies in mapping your personal energy landscape and learning to read its terrain. Consider how your energy fluctuates throughout the day. You might notice that after an intense workout, certain types of mental work become easier while others become more challenging. This isn't random. It's your body's sophisticated energy management system at work. Ryan, a third-year medical resident at Boston General Hospital, discovered this principle during his grueling hospital rotations. Working 80-hour weeks, he initially tried to conserve every ounce of physical energy, believing this would help him stay mentally sharp during his shifts. But he noticed something unexpected. On days when he forced himself to take the stairs instead of the elevator, or did quick sets of push-ups between patients, his diagnostic accuracy actually improved. I started tracking my energy patterns in detail, Ryan explains. I realized that physical movement, even when it left me temporarily tired, created a kind of mental awakening. My ability to spot subtle patterns in patient symptoms actually increased after periods of physical exertion. This observation led Ryan to develop what he called his energy optimization protocol. Instead of trying to stay physically fresh throughout his shift, he strategically incorporated brief periods of intense physical activity, taking the stairs 2 at a time between floors, doing wall push-ups between patient visits, or even just engaging in dynamic stretching during chart reviews. The results were remarkable. Not only did his diagnostic accuracy improve, but his overall stamina increased. By working with his body's natural energy patterns instead of against them, he found a sustainable way to maintain peak performance during long shifts. The key was understanding that feeling physically tired doesn't necessarily mean being mentally depleted, Ryan notes. Sometimes physical fatigue can actually enhance mental clarity, if you know how to harness it. This insight points to a crucial principle. Energy management isn't about conservation. It's about optimization. Traditional advice often treats energy as a single, finite resource that must be carefully rationed. But this oversimplified view misses the complex interplay between physical and psychological energy systems. Your challenge now is to begin mapping your own energy landscape. Tomorrow, create a simple 2-column log, one for physical energy, one for psychological energy. Rate each on a scale of 1 to 10 at different points throughout the day, paying special attention to how they interact. Note times when physical fatigue coincides with mental clarity, or when physical vitality accompanies mental fog. This data will reveal patterns unique to your energy profile, allowing you to optimize your schedule for peak performance in both domains. The key is to track these patterns without judgment or preconceptions. You might discover that your best creative work happens immediately after physical exertion, or that certain types of mental tasks benefit from specific physical states. These insights will become the foundation for a personalized energy management strategy that works with your natural rhythms instead of against them. Chapter 9. The Time Illusion. You glance at the clock. It's 2:47 p.m. The deadline looms at 5 p.m., and your heart rate quickens. Time seems to accelerate, slipping through your fingers like sand. But here's what's fascinating. Your perception of those remaining hours will dramatically influence whether you rise to the challenge or crumble under pressure. In a study, researchers discovered something remarkable. By simply adjusting office clocks to run 10% faster or slower, they could alter employees' productivity by up to 23%, even though the actual working hours remained unchanged. This discovery reveals something profound about human psychology. Time isn't just a fixed measurement. It's a malleable experience that your brain interprets differently based on context, emotion, and expectation. Understanding this principle unlocks a powerful new approach to productivity that goes beyond traditional time management. Think of time like water. It can flow as a gentle stream or rush like a torrent, depending on the channel it travels through. Your brain creates these channels through its interpretation of temporal cues, deadlines, and what psychologists call temporal landmarks. Significant moments that stand out in your mental timeline. Christopher Nolan's experience directing Inception provides a masterclass in leveraging these principles. During the film's complex production, Nolan faced a challenge familiar to many: how to maintain momentum on a project where perfectionism could easily lead to endless revisions and delays. The stakes were enormous. With a $160 million budget and a story that demanded intricate precision, the potential for procrastination and overthinking was immense. Nolan's solution was revolutionary in its simplicity. Instead of working with traditional production schedules, he implemented what he called temporal compression, artificially tightening timeframes for various aspects of production. He would deliberately set internal deadlines 20% shorter than actually needed, creating a sense of urgent momentum that prevented the team from falling into perfectionist traps. Time pressure, when properly engineered, doesn't just motivate, it liberates, Nolan noted in a production diary. It forces you to trust your instincts rather than endlessly second-guessing decisions. This insight proved transformative. Scenes that might have taken weeks of tweaking were completed in days, without sacrificing quality. In fact, the artificial time pressure often enhanced creativity by preventing overthinking. The science behind this approach reveals fascinating insights about human psychology. When faced with unlimited time, our brains tend to activate what researchers call the exploratory mode, continuously seeking better options rather than executing on current ones. While this can be valuable for certain tasks, it often leads to analysis paralysis and procrastination. Controlled time pressure, however, shifts the brain into implementation mode, focusing on execution rather than endless exploration. But Nolan's approach went beyond simply setting tighter deadlines. He created a system of what psychologists call temporal landmarks, significant moments that serve as psychological anchors in our perception of time. These weren't just major milestones. They included smaller, carefully engineered moments that maintained momentum throughout the project. For instance, instead of viewing each scene as part of one massive production, he broke the film down into what he called temporal islands, discrete units with their own mini deadlines and completion celebrations. This transformed a potentially overwhelming project into a series of manageable challenges, each with its own sense of urgency and achievement. The key insight here isn't just about creating artificial pressure. It's about understanding how your brain processes and responds to temporal cues. Your perception of time isn't fixed. It's highly influenced by how you structure and mark its passage. This understanding opens up powerful new possibilities for managing your own productivity. Lisa, a novelist struggling with her second book, discovered this principle through necessity. After spending 18 months stuck on her manuscript, she realized her problem wasn't lack of ideas. It was an unhealthy relationship with time itself. The seemingly endless stretch ahead had paradoxically paralyzed her progress. "I had all the time in the world," she recalls, "and that was exactly the problem. Without any real sense of urgency, every sentence became an opportunity for endless revision." Taking inspiration from Nolan's approach, Lisa developed what she called her time compression system. Instead of viewing her book as one massive project with a distant deadline, she created artificial temporal landmarks throughout her writing process. Each chapter became its own temporal island, with specific deadlines and completion rituals. She set up a series of false deadlines with her writing group, creating external accountability for these artificial time frames. The results were remarkable. Not only did she complete her manuscript 3 months ahead of schedule, but early readers noted that the writing felt more focused and energetic than her previous work. The artificial time pressure had actually enhanced her creativity rather than constraining it. The key was understanding that time isn't just something that happens to you, Lisa explains. It's something you can actively shape and structure to support your goals. She discovered that by creating artificial urgency, she could bypass her tendency to overthink and tap into a more productive creative flow. This approach reveals a crucial principle. Your relationship with time is largely determined by how you frame and structure it. The same 8-hour workday can feel like an eternity of procrastination or a focused sprint of productivity, depending on how you engineer your temporal landmarks and deadlines. The practical application of this principle requires understanding 3 key elements. First, temporal landmarks serve as psychological reset points that help you maintain momentum. These can be both natural, like Mondays or the first of the month, and artificial, like self-imposed milestones or deadlines. The key is to create enough landmarks to maintain a sense of progress without overwhelming your capacity to track them. Second, artificial deadlines must be both challenging and believable. If you make them too tight, your brain will dismiss them as impossible, too loose, and they lose their motivational power. The sweet spot is usually about 20% tighter than what feels comfortable, enough to create productive pressure without triggering panic. Third, time compression works best when combined with clear completion criteria. Each deadline needs to be associated with specific, measurable outcomes. This prevents the goalposts from shifting and maintains the psychological impact of your artificial timeframes. Chapter 10. The Power of Micro-Commitments. You stare at the screen, eyes burning from hours of frustration. The error message mocks you with its cryptic symbols and incomprehensible feedback. Every solution you've tried has failed, and the weight of the entire project seems to rest on solving this single bug. Your brain screams for escape, maybe a coffee break, or perhaps a quick check of your emails. Anything to avoid facing this seemingly insurmountable challenge. But what if the size of the problem isn't the real issue? What if your brain's response to the challenge matters more than the challenge itself? In 2019, at a major tech company in Silicon Valley, a critical system error threatened to delay a product launch worth millions. Senior developers had spent weeks trying to isolate the bug, each attempt increasing the pressure and, ironically, making the solution more elusive. Enter Elena, a junior developer who had only joined the team 6 months prior. While her more experienced colleagues attacked the problem head-on, Elena took a radically different approach. Instead of viewing the bug as one massive problem, she broke it down into segments so microscopically small that each piece felt almost trivial. "I didn't try to solve the bug," she later explained. "I just tried to understand one line of code at a time, without any pressure to fix anything." This seemingly simple shift in approach led to a breakthrough discovery within hours, one that had eluded the entire team for weeks. This phenomenon reveals a fascinating quirk of human psychology. Our brains process small commitments fundamentally differently than large ones. When faced with a significant challenge, our neural circuitry activates threat responses that can trigger procrastination and avoidance. However, when tasks are broken down below what neuroscientists call the psychological threshold, these defense mechanisms never activate in the first place. Anne Hathaway's preparation for her role in Les Miserables provides a masterclass in applying this principle. The challenge she faced was immense: lose 25 pounds, learn to sing opera, and embody the emotional devastation of a 19th century woman forced into prostitution, all while under intense public scrutiny. The magnitude of this task would have overwhelmed most performers, potentially triggering paralyzing anxiety and procrastination. Instead, Hathaway employed what she called her grain of sand approach. Rather than focusing on the enormous end goal, she broke everything down into actions so small they seemed almost insignificant. Her weight loss wasn't approached as lose 25 pounds, but rather eat one less bite at this meal. Learning opera wasn't master a new skill, but practice one phrase for 5 minutes. Even the emotional preparation was broken down into tiny, manageable moments of character development. The key was never thinking about the whole mountain, Hathaway revealed in a later interview. I just kept picking up one grain of sand at a time, knowing that eventually they would form a beach. This approach not only helped her achieve what many considered impossible, but also preserved her mental well-being throughout the process. The science behind this approach is revealing. Research in neuroscience shows that our brains have a specific threshold at which tasks trigger our threat response system. This threshold varies from person to person and even from domain to domain, but the principle remains constant. Break any task down small enough, and it bypasses our brain's resistance entirely. This insight transforms our understanding of procrastination. The problem isn't lack of willpower or motivation. It's that we're trying to tackle tasks that our brains automatically flag as threatening. By breaking these tasks down below our psychological threshold, we can maintain steady progress without triggering our internal resistance mechanisms. Lucas, a doctoral candidate in environmental science, discovered this principle through desperation. After months of paralysis on his dissertation, he developed what he called the ridiculous minutes technique. Instead of trying to write his dissertation, he committed to working for just 5 minutes at a time, a span so short it seemed almost laughable. At first I felt like I was cheating, Lucas admits. How could 5 minutes possibly make a difference? But something strange happened. Once I started, I usually wanted to continue. And even when I didn't, I still had met my commitment. There was no failure possible. The results were transformative. By removing the pressure of extended work sessions, Lucas found himself consistently making progress. More importantly, the quality of his work improved. Without the weight of the entire dissertation looming over each session, my thinking became clearer, more focused, he explains. Within 6 months, he had completed a dissertation that had previously seemed impossible. The key insight from Lucas's experience isn't just about breaking tasks down. It's about finding your personal threshold for resistance. This threshold can vary significantly based on factors like energy levels, time of day, and the nature of the task. The goal is to break commitments down until they feel almost ridiculously easy. Consider how this applies to your own procrastination patterns. Think of a task you've been avoiding. Now, imagine breaking it down into such tiny pieces that each one feels almost trivial. If you're writing a report, don't commit to finishing the first draft. Commit to writing one sentence. If you're starting a workout routine, don't pledge to exercise for an hour. Commit to putting on your running shoes. The power of micro-commitments lies not just in their achievability, but in how they bypass our brain's threat response system entirely. When a commitment feels small enough, our natural resistance mechanisms never activate in the first place. This creates a pathway for consistent progress without the psychological warfare that often accompanies larger goals. Take your most procrastinated project right now. Break it down into actions so small they feel almost ridiculous. Then start the first one within the next 60 seconds. Don't worry about how long you'll continue or what comes next. Just take that tiny first step, knowing that you've already succeeded simply by starting. Chapter 11. Engineering your environment for success. You sit down at your desk, ready to tackle that important project you've been putting off. Within minutes, your hand unconsciously reaches for your phone. You catch yourself, put it away, and try to focus. But something feels off. The afternoon light creates an uncomfortable glare on your screen. The chair doesn't feel quite right. Before you know it, you're up again, adjusting things, checking emails, doing anything except the work that matters. What if these weren't just random distractions? What if your environment was actually programming your behavior without you realizing it? In 2022, a groundbreaking study revealed something extraordinary. When researchers adjusted desk heights by just 2 inches, average productivity increased by 47%. The fascinating part? It had nothing to do with ergonomics. The simple act of changing the physical environment disrupted deeply ingrained procrastination patterns that employees didn't even know they had. This discovery opens up a revolutionary understanding of how our surroundings shape our behavior. Just as a river follows the path of least resistance, our actions are subtly but powerfully guided by our environment. Every object, every spatial arrangement, every ambient condition creates what psychologists call behavioral affordances, subtle cues that make certain actions more likely than others. Morgan Freeman's preparation process for new roles offers a masterclass in leveraging this principle. While many actors focus on internal techniques like method acting, Freeman discovered something unexpected early in his career. Before taking on each new character, he completely rearranges his personal workspace, changing everything from furniture layout to lighting conditions. "People thought I was eccentric," Freeman revealed in a rare interview about his process. "But I discovered that different environmental configurations triggered different mental states. When I prepared for my role in Shawshank Redemption, I deliberately created a sparse, confined workspace that echoed Red's prison experience. The physical constraints actually helped me access the character's mindset without conscious effort." This wasn't just artistic intuition. Freeman had stumbled upon what neuroscientists now call environmental state triggering, how physical surroundings can automatically activate specific neural patterns and behavioral responses. His workspace redesigns weren't about aesthetics. They were about programming his brain for optimal performance in each role. The implications of this extend far beyond acting. Our environments are constantly programming our behavior through what researchers call trigger landscapes, networks of physical cues that automatically activate specific mental and behavioral patterns. These triggers operate below conscious awareness, which is precisely what makes them so powerful, and so dangerous when left unexamined. See how this plays out in your own space. That phone charger visible from your desk? It's not just a charger. It's a constant subliminal reminder of potential distractions. The layout of your workspace, the objects in your peripheral vision, the ambient sounds and lighting. All of these elements are either supporting your productivity or subtly sabotaging it. Emma, a senior developer, discovered this principle by accident during the transition to remote work. Initially struggling with productivity at home, she noticed something peculiar. She procrastinated more when working from her living room couch than at her dedicated desk. This observation led her to completely reimagine her home office using environmental psychology principles. "I started treating my workspace like code," Emma explains. "Just as we optimize software for efficiency, I began optimizing my environment for focused work. I removed every object that didn't directly serve my productivity. I adjusted lighting to match my energy patterns throughout the day. I even created different work zones for different types of tasks." The results were remarkable. Within 3 weeks, Emma's productivity doubled while her working hours actually decreased. More importantly, the effort required to maintain focus dropped significantly. "It's like the space does half the work for me now," she notes. "I don't have to fight against my environment anymore." The science behind Emma's success reveals a crucial insight. Willpower is a finite resource, but environmental design can make productivity automatic. When your surroundings are optimized for focus, maintaining concentration requires less conscious effort. This creates a positive feedback loop where productive behavior becomes the path of least resistance. This principle extends beyond physical objects to include all sensory inputs. Research shows that ambient noise levels, temperature, lighting, and even air quality significantly impact cognitive performance. A study found that something as simple as adjusting office temperature by just 2 degrees could increase productivity by up to 15%. But here's the key insight. These environmental factors don't just affect our performance, they specifically influence our tendency to procrastinate. When our surroundings create subtle discomfort or cognitive load, our brains are more likely to seek escape through procrastination. This means that optimizing your environment isn't just about enhancing focus. It's about removing the unconscious triggers that activate procrastination patterns. The good news is that you can immediately begin engineering your environment for success. Start by conducting a trigger audit of your workspace. Look for these common procrastination triggers. Visual distractions. Any objects in your line of sight that remind you of other tasks or potential distractions. Comfort. Inhibitors. Elements that create subtle physical discomfort, like poor lighting or uncomfortable seating. Task friction points. Aspects of your setup that make starting work even slightly more difficult than necessary. State triggers. Environmental cues that unconsciously activate non-productive mental states. Then, systematically optimize each element to support rather than sabotage your focus. This isn't about creating a perfect workspace. It's about engineering an environment that makes productivity the default state rather than something you have to consciously maintain. Your challenge right now: stand up and identify 3 elements in your immediate workspace that could be triggering procrastination. These might be visual distractions, comfort issues, or friction points that make starting work harder than necessary. Change these 3 elements immediately, even if the changes seem small. Remember, a 2-inch desk height adjustment led to a 47% productivity increase. Sometimes the smallest environmental changes create the most powerful behavioral shifts. Chapter 12. The Paradox of Effortless Focus. You lean forward, squinting at your screen, willing yourself to concentrate harder. Your shoulders tense, your jaw clenches, and somehow, the harder you try to focus, the more your mind seems to slip away. This familiar struggle reveals a profound truth about human attention, one that military snipers discovered decades ago. At the U.S. Army Sniper School in Fort Benning, Georgia, instructors noticed something peculiar. The students who tried hardest to maintain laser-like focus often performed worse than those who appeared almost relaxed. This observation led to a revolutionary discovery. Peak concentration isn't achieved through force. It emerges when we learn to get out of our own way. Master Sergeant Jim Gilliland, one of the most accomplished snipers in military history, describes it this way: "The moment you try to force focus, you've already lost it. True precision comes from a state of relaxed awareness, what we call soft eyes. It's counterintuitive, but the harder you try to concentrate, the more you undermine your natural capacity for attention." This insight extends far beyond the battlefield. Every time you sit down to work, you're engaging in your own version of precision targeting. Whether you're writing code, analyzing data, or crafting a presentation, your ability to maintain sustained attention determines your success. But like those sniper students, you've likely been sabotaging yourself by trying too hard. Martin Scorsese's experience during the filming of Raging Bull provides a masterclass in this principle. Known for his meticulous attention to detail, Scorsese initially struggled with maintaining focus during the grueling 18-hour shooting days. Traditional methods like caffeine and forced concentration left him mentally exhausted and creatively drained. Everything changed when he encountered a Zen archery master who taught him about peripheral vision consciousness. Instead of narrowing his focus to a laser point, Scorsese learned to maintain a state of relaxed awareness that actually expanded his perception. He described it as seeing everything while looking at nothing. It transformed my entire approach to directing, Scorsese revealed. Instead of forcing myself to focus harder, I learned to settle into a state where attention became effortless. The longer I stayed in this state, the clearer everything became. Decisions that used to drain me now felt natural and intuitive. This technique became crucial during the complex boxing sequences in Raging Bull. Rather than exhausting himself trying to track every detail, Scorsese maintained what he called a soft awareness that allowed him to notice subtle nuances while preserving his mental energy. The result was some of the most precisely choreographed scenes in cinema history, achieved with less mental strain than his previous work. The science behind this approach reveals why traditional advice about focus gets it exactly wrong. When you try to force concentration, you activate your sympathetic nervous system, the fight-or-flight response. This creates mental tension that actually makes sustained attention more difficult and energetically costly. In contrast, effortless focus emerges when you activate the parasympathetic nervous system, your body's rest and digest mode. This state allows your brain to process information more efficiently while consuming less energy. It's the difference between clenching a fist and letting your hand rest naturally open. Both keep your hand in position, but one quickly becomes exhausting, while the other can be maintained indefinitely. Dante, a day trader in Singapore, discovered this principle by accident during the market crash of 2020. The intense volatility demanded unprecedented levels of attention, and his usual approach of forced concentration left him mentally exhausted by mid-morning. "I was trying so hard to focus that I could feel my brain overheating," Dante recalls. "Then one morning, my meditation app malfunctioned and played nature sounds during my trading session. Something unexpected happened. My attention actually improved. The ambient sound helped me relax into a state of effortless awareness that I could maintain for hours." This accidental discovery led Dante to completely redesign his trading approach. Instead of trying to maintain white-knuckle focus, he created what he calls his flow protocol, a combination of environmental cues, breathing patterns, and mental techniques that allow him to enter a state of effortless attention within minutes. "I now trade in what feels like a state of relaxed alertness," he explains. "I'm fully aware of market movements but without the mental strain. My decision-making has improved, and I can maintain peak attention for entire trading sessions without feeling drained." The key insight from both Scorsese and Dante's experiences is that focus isn't something you do. It's a state you allow to emerge by removing obstacles. This means identifying and eliminating what attention researchers call cognitive friction, the subtle mental tensions that make concentration unnecessarily difficult. Common sources of cognitive friction include visual chaos in your environment that forces your brain to constantly filter information, muscular tension that signals threat to your nervous system, mental commentary about needing to focus, which creates meta-stress. The solution isn't to try harder, but to systematically eliminate these friction points while cultivating the conditions that allow natural focus to emerge. Think of your attention like a pool of water. The harder you try to grab it, the more it slips through your fingers. But create the right conditions, and it naturally becomes crystal clear. This is what military snipers learn. They don't achieve superhuman focus through force of will, but by mastering the conditions that allow natural clarity to emerge. Your immediate challenge. For the next 90 seconds, practice what snipers call the soft eyes technique. Relax your gaze while maintaining awareness of both your central vision and peripheral field. Don't try to focus on anything specific. Simply allow your attention to settle naturally. Notice how this state feels different from forced concentration. Then, maintaining this relaxed awareness, turn to your most important task and notice how your relationship with focus shifts. Remember, the goal isn't to concentrate harder, but to remove the obstacles that make concentration difficult. True focus isn't a technique to master. It's your natural state when you learn to get out of your own way. Chapter 13. The Hidden Power of Strategic Procrastination. You've been taught that procrastination is the enemy of achievement, that every moment spent avoiding a task is a moment wasted. But what if this fundamental assumption is wrong? What if some of history's greatest achievements weren't created through relentless focus, but through the art of strategic procrastination? Let's talk about Thomas Edison's laboratory in Menlo Park, circa 1879. While ostensibly focused on developing the electric light bulb, Edison would frequently procrastinate by tinkering with other inventions. During these apparent diversions, he created the phonograph, the motion picture camera, and dozens of other revolutionary innovations. His legendary output of 1,093 patents wasn't achieved through singular focus. It was the result of masterfully channeled procrastination. This revelation challenges everything we think we know about productivity. Edison's example reveals a profound truth. The urge to avoid one task can become the engine that drives progress in another direction. This isn't justification for aimless avoidance. It's a sophisticated strategy for maintaining momentum when direct progress feels impossible. Lin-Manuel Miranda's journey with Hamilton provides a masterclass in this principle. While struggling with writer's block on another musical, Miranda picked up Ron Chernow's biography of Alexander Hamilton during what was supposed to be a vacation. This procrastination reading sparked an idea that would revolutionize musical theater. "I was actually avoiding work on another project," Miranda revealed. "But something about Hamilton's story grabbed me. I started writing songs as a way to procrastinate on my other commitments. The more I felt pressure to return to my original project, the more energy I poured into Hamilton." What appeared to be procrastination was actually Miranda's creative process, finding its true direction. The songs he wrote while avoiding other work became the foundation of a cultural phenomenon that would earn him a Pulitzer Prize and reshape Broadway history. Looking back, I realized that what felt like procrastination was actually my brain's way of directing me toward what mattered most, Miranda reflected. The resistance I felt toward other projects wasn't laziness. It was my creative instinct pointing me toward something more important. This pattern of productive procrastination reveals itself throughout history. Agatha Christie wrote murder mysteries while avoiding work on more serious novels. Einstein developed special relativity while procrastinating on his duties at the patent office. Their apparent avoidance of primary tasks became the catalyst for their most significant contributions. The key lies in understanding that procrastination isn't just an obstacle to overcome. It's energy that can be redirected. When you feel the urge to avoid one task, that mental energy doesn't disappear. It seeks an outlet. The secret is creating intentional channels for that energy to flow productively. This is where the task rotation matrix comes into play. Instead of fighting procrastination, this framework helps you design a system where avoiding any given task automatically leads to progress in another valuable direction. It's like creating a productivity circuit where energy always flows somewhere useful, even when it meets resistance in its primary channel. Carmen Rodriguez, a senior marketing executive at a Fortune 500 company, discovered this principle by accident during a particularly challenging quarter. Facing multiple high-stakes deadlines, she noticed her tendency to avoid certain projects by working on others. I used to beat myself up about not tackling tasks in their proper order, Carmen explains. Then I realized something fascinating. The projects I procrastinated on by working on other projects often turned out better because I was approaching them with fresh energy and perspective. This observation led Carmen to develop what she calls her productivity carousel. Instead of maintaining a rigid task hierarchy, she created clusters of important projects that could productively feed into each other. When she felt resistance toward one task, she had pre-selected alternatives that would still move her toward her broader goals. It was like discovering a secret passage in a video game, she says. Instead of hitting the wall of procrastination and bouncing backward, I found ways to redirect that energy into parallel progress. My overall productivity actually increased when I stopped fighting my natural tendencies and started working with them. The science behind this approach reveals why it works so effectively. When we force ourselves to focus on a resisted task, we activate the brain's threat response system, making sustained attention both difficult and energetically costly. But when we channel that avoidance energy into another productive direction, we maintain momentum while allowing our subconscious mind to continue processing the original task. This explains why solutions to complex problems often come to us while we're engaged in seemingly unrelated activities. Our brain continues working on challenge tasks in the background while we make progress in other areas. It's not about avoiding difficult work. It's about maintaining productive movement while our minds naturally process challenges. The key to making this work is creating intentional channels for procrastination energy. This means identifying complementary projects and tasks that can productively absorb your attention when primary tasks feel resistant. The goal is to ensure that every act of avoidance becomes an act of progress in another valuable direction. Chapter 14. The Accountability Advantage. You're sitting alone at your desk, staring at another unfinished project. Your intentions are pure, your goals are clear, yet something's missing. That final push, that unavoidable force that turns intention into action, remains elusive. What if the missing piece isn't inside you at all? A groundbreaking study revealed a startling truth. Participants were 3 times more likely to achieve their goals when failure would trigger a donation to a cause they opposed. The mere thought of their money supporting something they disagreed with created more motivation than any personal reward could provide. This discovery points to a profound truth about human nature. We're wired to respond more powerfully to social consequences than to personal willpower. The science behind this phenomenon reveals something fascinating about our brain's motivation centers. When we're accountable only to ourselves, the neural pathways associated with commitment and follow-through show minimal activation. However, when social consequences enter the picture, these same pathways light up like a Christmas tree. Our brain literally processes social accountability differently than personal commitment. Arnold Schwarzenegger's early bodybuilding career provides a masterclass in leveraging this principle. In 1969, when he arrived in America, Schwarzenegger faced a crucial challenge. Despite his impressive European success, he knew that conquering the American bodybuilding scene would require pushing beyond his current limitations. The solution came through his partnership with fellow bodybuilder Franco Columbu. Together, they created what Schwarzenegger called the no-escape system. Each would commit to specific training goals for the week, with a twist. If either missed a workout, they had to buy the other's meals for the entire following week. For 2 struggling immigrants watching every penny, this created powerful social and financial pressure to maintain consistency. It wasn't just about the money, Schwarzenegger later revealed. It was about looking Franco in the eye each morning. The thought of letting down your training partner was worse than any physical pain. This accountability partnership drove both men to unprecedented achievements, with Schwarzenegger winning Mr. Olympia 7 times and Columbu claiming the title twice. Their system worked because it combined multiple layers of accountability: social pressure, not wanting to disappoint a respected peer; financial consequences, the meal penalty; and public commitment. Their goals were known throughout Gold's Gym. This multifaceted approach created a motivation structure so powerful it overcame even their most challenging moments of resistance. The key insight from their experience isn't just that accountability works. It's that properly structured accountability makes success almost inevitable. By creating consequences that matter more than our momentary discomfort, we can essentially guarantee follow-through. Tyler's story demonstrates how this principle can transform even the most challenging business situations. As a first-time entrepreneur launching a software company, Tyler struggled with consistent execution. Despite having a promising product, he found himself constantly procrastinating on crucial business development tasks. "I had the skills, the knowledge, and the opportunity," Tyler explains. "But something was missing. I'd make plans every Sunday night, then watch them fall apart by Tuesday morning." The turning point came when he designed what he called his triple lock accountability system. First, he joined a mastermind group of fellow entrepreneurs, committing to weekly progress reports. The thought of showing up empty-handed created immediate social pressure. Second, he set up an accountability contract with his mentor. If he missed his weekly goals, he had to write a $500 check to his mentor's favorite charity, which happened to support a political cause Tyler opposed. Finally, he began posting weekly public updates about his progress on LinkedIn, creating professional reputation stakes. The system worked because it attacked procrastination from multiple angles, Tyler says. The mastermind group provided peer pressure, the financial stake created immediate consequences, and the public updates meant my professional network was watching. Suddenly, following through became easier than facing the consequences of not doing so. Within 6 months of implementing this system, Tyler's company secured its first major client and raised initial funding. The accountability structure had transformed his execution from sporadic to consistent, making previously overwhelming tasks manageable through the power of social consequence. The science behind Tyler's success reveals why multi-layered accountability works so effectively. Each layer activates different motivation centers in the brain. Social accountability triggers our need for group acceptance. Financial stakes activate our loss aversion instincts, and public commitments engage our desire for consistency and reputation management. This explains why accountability partnerships often fail when they're too casual or lack specific consequences. The brain requires clear, meaningful stakes to override its natural resistance patterns. It's not enough to simply tell someone your goals. You need to create a structure where follow-through becomes the path of least resistance. The key to designing an effective accountability system lies in understanding your personal motivation triggers. Some people respond strongly to financial consequences, others to social pressure, and still others to public commitments. The most powerful systems combine multiple triggers while ensuring the consequences feel meaningful but not overwhelming. Try creating an accountability structure that includes a weekly check-in with a respected peer or mentor, a specific meaningful consequence for missed commitments, a public element that puts your professional or social reputation at stake, clear, measurable goals that leave no room for ambiguity, regular progress documentation to maintain momentum. Your challenge now is to design and activate your own accountability structure within the next 24 hours. Choose your most important current goal and identify an accountability partner who will hold you to high standards. Define clear, weekly measurable targets. Establish meaningful consequences for missed commitments. Create a public element that puts your reputation at stake. Set up your first check-in for this week. Remember, the goal isn't to create pressure that paralyzes. It's to build a support structure that makes success almost inevitable. Take action now while this insight is fresh. Your future self will thank you for it. Chapter 15. Breaking Free from Digital Gravity. You glance at your phone's screen time report and freeze. The numbers stare back at you, cold and unforgiving. 3.4 years. That's how much of your life will be spent mindlessly scrolling, switching between apps, and falling into digital rabbit holes. In the time you'll spend procrastinating on your device, you could have earned a medical degree, learned 3 languages, or written 5 novels. The weight of this realization hits hard. Your smartphone has become both your greatest tool and your greatest obstacle. The complex relationship between technology and productivity reveals a fascinating paradox in human behavior. While our devices promise enhanced efficiency and connectivity, they often create what neuroscientists call continuous partial attention, a state where we're perpetually distracted but never fully focused. This phenomenon has rewired our brains in profound and concerning ways. Ed Sheeran's experience during the creation of his breakthrough album, Divide, offers a compelling glimpse into the transformative power of digital boundaries. In 2016, facing creative blockage and mounting pressure to deliver his 3rd studio album, Sheeran made a radical decision. He completely abandoned his smartphone and internet access for 12 months. "Everyone thought I was crazy," Sheeran later revealed. "My management was worried I'd become irrelevant, that I'd miss important opportunities, but I was drowning in notifications, constantly reacting instead of creating." The first week was excruciating. His brain, accustomed to constant digital stimulation, rebelled against the silence. But then something remarkable happened. Without the constant pull of digital gravity, Sheeran's creative process transformed. Songs that had been stuck in partial completion for months suddenly flowed freely. His writing sessions, no longer interrupted by notifications, stretched into deep periods of sustained creativity. The album he produced during this digital detox became his most successful to date, breaking multiple streaming records. "The biggest revelation wasn't about productivity," Sheeran explained. "It was realizing how much mental space had been occupied by digital noise. When that cleared, everything changed. My creativity, my relationships, even my sleep patterns." His experiment revealed a crucial truth. Our devices don't just consume our time. They fragment our consciousness in ways that fundamentally impact our ability to perform deep, meaningful work. This understanding aligns with recent neuroscience research on attention and technology. Studies using fMRI scans show that frequent digital interruptions literally reshape our neural pathways, making it harder to maintain sustained focus, even when we're away from our devices. This creates a self-reinforcing cycle. The more we submit to digital distraction, the more our brains become wired for interruption rather than concentration. The concept of digital gravity explains why traditional approaches to managing technology often fail. Just as physical gravity exerts an invisible but constant pull, our devices create psychological force fields that draw our attention and energy away from important tasks. This pull operates below our conscious awareness, making it particularly difficult to resist through willpower alone. Understanding this principle allows us to design more effective strategies for managing our digital lives. Instead of relying on self-control, we need to create systems that acknowledge and work with the reality of digital gravity. This means establishing what psychologists call environmental firewalls, physical and digital boundaries that protect our attention from unconscious pulls. Mei Zhang's story demonstrates how these principles can transform even the most technology-dependent careers. As a social media manager for a major brand, Mei initially believed that constant connectivity was essential for her job. Her days were a blur of notifications, messages, and endless platform monitoring. Despite working longer hours than her colleagues, her performance consistently fell short of expectations. The turning point came when Mei realized that her constant availability was actually undermining her effectiveness. I was so focused on responding quickly that I lost the ability to think strategically, she explains. I was drowning in the stream instead of directing it. May developed what she called her digital airlock system, a structured approach to entering and exiting online spaces. She divided her day into distinct zones: connected time for active social media management, creation time for content development with all notifications disabled, and strategy time for planning, completely offline. The results were immediate and dramatic. By concentrating her online engagement into specific time blocks, May found she could process more information more effectively. Her content quality improved because she gave herself uninterrupted space for creativity. Most surprisingly, her response times to important messages actually decreased because she wasn't constantly switching between tasks. The key was realizing that being always available made me less effective at everything, May notes. By creating boundaries, I became more present and valuable during both my online and offline time. Within 3 months of implementing her system, May's performance metrics improved by 40%, while her actual working hours decreased. May's experience highlights a crucial truth about digital management. The goal isn't to eliminate technology, but to create a sustainable relationship with it. This requires understanding your specific patterns of digital distraction and designing personalized interventions that protect your most valuable attention. The most effective approach combines 3 key elements: physical barriers that create distance between you and your devices during focused work, time-based boundaries that clearly delineate when you're available versus when you're in deep work mode, environmental cues that support your intended behavior patterns. Chapter 16. Writing Your Natural Rhythms. You're sitting at your desk, staring at the most important project of your quarter. The deadline looms, yet your brain feels like it's wading through molasses. You've tried everything: more coffee, better planning, even those productivity hacks that worked last week. But right now, nothing seems to help. In 3 hours, you'll mysteriously feel sharp and focused again, tackling complex problems with ease. This isn't random chance. It's your brain following an ancient biological pattern that holds the key to unprecedented productivity. In 1989, sleep researcher Dr. Nathan Kleitman made an accidental discovery that would revolutionize our understanding of human performance. While studying sleep patterns, he noticed something extraordinary. The 90-minute cycles that govern our sleep states don't stop when we wake up. They continue throughout the day, creating distinct windows of peak performance, followed by necessary periods of recovery. This pattern, known as the ultradian rhythm, explains why forcing yourself to focus for hours without breaks inevitably leads to procrastination and burnout. The implications of this discovery were staggering. It meant that procrastination isn't always a sign of poor discipline. Sometimes it's your brain's biological defense mechanism against working against its natural rhythms. When you try to push through these natural recovery periods, you're not just fighting laziness, you're fighting fundamental biology. Serena Williams' journey with ultradian rhythms offers a compelling glimpse into their transformative power. In 2012, facing unprecedented challenges in her career, Williams began working with performance coach Patrick Mouratoglou, who introduced her to the concept of training with her body's natural rhythms rather than against them. "I used to pride myself on practicing longer than anyone else," Williams later revealed. "I thought more hours meant better results, but I was actually fighting my body's natural patterns." Under Mouratoglou's guidance, Williams restructured her training into precise 90-minute blocks, followed by mandatory 20-minute recovery periods. The results were remarkable. Not only did her performance improve dramatically, but she also experienced faster recovery and fewer injuries. Most surprisingly, she found herself accomplishing more in these focused 90-minute sessions than in her previous marathon training days. It wasn't about training harder, she explained. It was about training smarter, working with my body's natural rhythms instead of against them. This approach led to what many consider the most dominant period of her career, including her remarkable 2015 season, where she won 3 consecutive Grand Slam titles. But the implications of ultradian rhythms extend far beyond athletic performance. Recent neuroscience research has revealed that these 90-minute cycles affect every aspect of our cognitive function. During peak phases, our brain exhibits what scientists call high-amplitude alpha waves, associated with optimal focus and creative problem-solving. During trough phases, these waves naturally decrease, signaling our brain's need for recovery. Understanding this pattern explains why traditional time management approaches often fail. When we try to maintain constant high performance throughout the day, we're fighting against our brain's fundamental operating system. This creates what performance psychologists call cognitive friction, the mental resistance that leads to procrastination and reduced effectiveness. The key to leveraging these rhythms lies in understanding that they're both universal and personal. While everyone experiences roughly 90-minute cycles, the timing and intensity of peaks and troughs vary individually. This explains why some people experience their sharpest thinking in the morning, while others peak in the afternoon or evening. Adrian's story demonstrates how this understanding can transform professional performance. As a senior software developer at a high-pressure tech startup, Adrian struggled with inconsistent productivity despite working long hours. His breakthrough came when he discovered his personal ultradian pattern. I noticed I would get into incredible flow states where I could solve complex problems effortlessly, but these states seemed random, Adrian explains. Once I started tracking my energy patterns, I realized they followed a predictable rhythm. Using a simple energy tracking app, Adrian mapped his natural cycles over 2 weeks. The pattern was clear. His peak cognitive periods occurred in 90-minute blocks starting at 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. Adrian restructured his entire workday around these rhythms. He scheduled his most challenging coding tasks during peak periods and used trough times for code reviews and team communications. Most importantly, he began honoring his recovery periods instead of fighting through them with caffeine and willpower. The hardest part was convincing myself that taking breaks would actually increase my productivity, Adrian notes. But the data was undeniable. Within a month, his code output increased by 40%, while reported bugs decreased by 60%. Most surprisingly, he found himself working fewer total hours while accomplishing more. Adrian's experience highlights 3 critical principles for working with ultradian rhythms. Peak periods are for deep, focused work requiring full cognitive engagement. Recovery periods are not optional. They're essential for maintaining peak performance. Fighting natural rhythms creates resistance that manifests as procrastination. The science behind these rhythms reveals why traditional power-through-it approaches to productivity often backfire. When we ignore our brain's need for recovery, we trigger a cascade of stress hormones that actually impair cognitive function and creativity. This creates a negative spiral where we work harder but accomplish less, leading to frustration and burnout. Your immediate challenge is to begin mapping your personal ultradian rhythms. For the next 90 minutes, track your energy, focus, and mental clarity every 15 minutes using a simple 1 to 10 scale. Note when you naturally feel sharp and when you start to fade. This initial data point will give you insight into your personal performance pattern, allowing you to design tomorrow's most important task around your predicted peak period. Chapter 17. The Hidden Cost of Choices. You're sitting in a courtroom watching as a seasoned judge reviews a parole case. The defendant's record shows genuine rehabilitation, strong family support, and excellent behavior. Yet the judge denies parole without much deliberation. The shocking truth? It's not about the merits of the case at all. It's 4:30 p.m., and the judge has already made over 200 decisions today. A study of 1,112 parole board hearings revealed an alarming pattern. Prisoners were 85% more likely to receive parole if their cases were heard in the morning versus late afternoon. The determining factor wasn't justice. It was the time of day and the judge's depleted capacity for complex decision-making. This isn't just about judicial decisions. Right now, you're facing your own version of decision fatigue. Every choice you've made today, from what to wear, to which emails to answer first, to what to eat for lunch, has slowly drained your mental energy. By the time you face that important project you've been putting off, your brain's decision-making muscles are exhausted. What feels like procrastination is actually decision fatigue in disguise. The science behind this phenomenon reveals a startling truth. Willpower and decision-making draw from the same limited pool of mental energy. Each decision, no matter how small, depletes this reservoir. This explains why even highly successful people often find themselves procrastinating on important tasks later in the day. Their mental energy has been drained by countless smaller decisions. Mark Zuckerberg's famous wardrobe choice, wearing the same gray t-shirt every day, offers a fascinating glimpse into how top performers manage decision fatigue. But the story goes deeper than most people realize. In 2014, during a public Q&A, Zuckerberg explained that his wardrobe simplification was just the visible tip of a comprehensive system for eliminating unnecessary decisions. "I really want to clear my life to make it so that I have to make as few decisions as possible about anything, except how to best serve this community," Zuckerberg revealed. His decision minimization strategy extended far beyond clothing. He standardized his morning routine, automated his meal choices, and created strict protocols for how meetings were structured and decisions were made at Facebook. The results were remarkable. By eliminating hundreds of minor decisions, Zuckerberg found he could maintain peak mental clarity for crucial strategic choices well into the evening, while competitors often struggled with decision fatigue by mid-afternoon. This advantage proved crucial during Facebook's rapid expansion phase, when the company needed to make complex decisions about acquisitions, product development, and market strategy. The implications of Zuckerberg's approach extend far beyond the tech world. Recent neuroscience research has shown that decision-making consumes glucose in the brain at a surprisingly high rate. Each decision, regardless of importance, depletes this limited resource. This creates what psychologists call the decision depletion effect, where our ability to make quality choices deteriorates with each decision, regardless of its significance. Understanding this mechanism explains why traditional productivity advice often fails. When we try to tackle important tasks late in the day, after making countless small decisions, we're not just fighting procrastination. We're fighting against fundamental brain chemistry. This insight revolutionizes how we should approach task management and daily planning. The key to leveraging this understanding lies in what psychologists call decision energy accounting. Strategically managing your daily decision load to preserve mental energy for crucial choices. This approach requires both eliminating unnecessary decisions and structuring important choices during peak mental energy periods. Rebecca's story demonstrates how this principle can transform professional performance. As a clinical psychologist managing a busy private practice, Rebecca found herself struggling with decision fatigue that affected her ability to remain fully present with her last patients of the day. "I was making hundreds of small decisions throughout the day. Which patient issues to focus on, how to structure each session, even what to write in my notes," Rebecca explains. "By my afternoon sessions, I could feel my clinical judgment becoming less sharp, even though I had years of experience." Rebecca's breakthrough came when she began treating her decision-making capacity as a finite resource. She implemented a comprehensive decision minimization protocol. She standardized her session structure, creating clear templates for different types of therapeutic interventions. She automated her scheduling system, eliminating daily decisions about appointment timing. She created a uniform documentation process that removed the need to decide how to format clinical notes. She pre-planned her wardrobe, meals, and routine administrative tasks for the entire week. The hardest part was accepting that even small decisions matter, Rebecca notes. But once I started treating my decision-making energy as precious, everything changed. Within a month, she noticed a dramatic improvement in her clinical effectiveness, particularly with afternoon patients. Her client satisfaction scores increased by 40%, and she found herself less exhausted at day's end. Rebecca's experience highlights 3 critical principles for managing decision fatigue. Decision energy is finite and depletes throughout the day, regardless of the decision's importance. Eliminating minor decisions preserves mental energy for crucial choices. The quality of our decisions deteriorates predictably unless we actively manage our decision load. The science reveals why trying to power through decision fatigue inevitably leads to procrastination or poor choices. When we deplete our decision-making energy, our brain automatically shifts to what psychologists call decision avoidance, defaulting to the easiest option rather than the best one. This creates a negative spiral where we postpone important decisions, leading to increased stress and poorer outcomes. Your immediate challenge is to conduct a decision audit. For the next 24 hours, identify and eliminate 5 unnecessary daily decisions. These might be clothing choices, meal options, routine work processes, or any recurring choice that consumes mental energy without adding significant value. Document these decisions, then create a simple system to automate or eliminate them. This initial step will give you a tangible experience of how reduced decision load can increase your mental clarity and decision-making capacity for important tasks. Chapter 18. Breaking Free from the Perfection Trap. You sit at your desk, cursor blinking on the screen, making yet another minor adjustment to a project that's already well past its deadline. The file name tells its own story. Final version, Final VAF 7, actually Final 2.doc. Deep down, you know it's ready. It might even be excellent. But something keeps you tweaking, adjusting, perfecting, and most importantly, avoiding the moment of truth when you have to release it into the world. This exact struggle played out in one of cinema's most legendary examples of perfectionism. 3 days before his death in 1999, Stanley Kubrick left a detailed voicemail for his assistant, suggesting minute adjustments to Eyes Wide Shut, a film he'd already spent 12 years meticulously crafting. The message, preserved in Warner Bros.' archives, reveals a master filmmaker still finding essential changes in a project that most would have considered perfect years earlier. This moment captures the hidden truth about perfectionism. It's not really about making things perfect. It's about avoiding the vulnerability of completion. Kubrick's brilliance is undeniable, but his perfectionism often crossed the line from enhancement to avoidance, from excellence to escape. His final film, while masterful, raises a profound question. How many other stories might he have told if he'd learned to embrace good enough? The science behind perfectionism reveals a fascinating paradox. The pursuit of perfection often leads to worse outcomes than the acceptance of excellence. Research shows that perfectionists actually complete fewer projects, achieve lower grades, and report higher levels of anxiety than their good-enough counterparts. The reason? Perfectionism triggers what psychologists call the completion avoidance loop, where the fear of imperfect results creates such anxiety that we either avoid starting or never finish. This pattern played out dramatically in Adele's journey, creating her third album, 25. Following the unprecedented success of 21, she found herself trapped in what she later called perfectionist paralysis. The pressure to match her previous success led to countless discarded songs and repeated false starts. The breakthrough came when her producer, Paul Epworth, introduced her to what would become her famous 90% is better than zero philosophy. "I was chasing perfect so hard I couldn't even write a single line," Adele revealed in a 2015 interview. "Paul asked me a simple question. Would you rather have an imperfect album that touches millions, or a perfect album that never leaves your computer?" This mindset shift not only broke her creative blockage, but led to the creation of Hello, a song she later admitted was probably only 90% of what it could be, but went on to break streaming records and touch millions of lives. The key insight from Adele's experience isn't that we should lower our standards. It's that we need to understand the true relationship between perfectionism and excellence. Research shows that the most successful individuals and organizations aren't perfectionists. They're what researchers call optimal satisficers. These are people who maintain high standards while understanding that beyond a certain point, additional perfectionism yields diminishing or even negative returns. This brings us to the concept of productive imperfection, the strategic decision to embrace good enough in service of greater overall impact. This isn't about settling for mediocrity. It's about understanding that perfect is often the enemy of excellent. Notice how this plays out in your own life. Every time you delay sending that email until it's just right, or hold back from starting a project until conditions are perfect, you're not just procrastinating, you're letting perfectionism rob you of momentum and impact. The solution lies in developing what psychologists call completion confidence, the ability to recognize and accept when something has reached its point of optimal impact. This requires understanding three key principles. First, perfectionism is often fear in disguise. When we obsess over minor details, we're usually avoiding the vulnerability of putting our work into the world. Second, most successful projects succeed not because they're perfect, but because they're complete and available when needed. Third, the energy spent pursuing the last 10% of perfection is usually better invested in starting the next project. James's story illustrates how these principles can transform not just productivity, but entire careers. As a designer in San Francisco, James found himself consistently missing deadlines and losing clients despite producing exceptional work. His breakthrough came when he analyzed his time allocation and discovered a shocking truth. He was spending 80% of his time on refinements that clients couldn't even perceive. "I was tweaking pixel alignments that literally no one but me would ever notice," James admits. "Meanwhile, I was missing deadlines and turning away new projects because I didn't have time." James developed what he calls his minimum viable perfection system, a structured approach to identifying the point where additional refinement stops adding meaningful value. The system had 3 simple rules. Define excellence criteria at the start of each project, specific measurable standards that would satisfy both professional integrity and client needs. Set clear perfection limits, predetermine time caps for refinement phases, require justification for any adjustments beyond the first revision, forcing conscious decisions about the value of additional changes. The results transformed his business. Within 3 months, James had tripled his output while maintaining his reputation for quality work. More importantly, client satisfaction actually increased, not because the work was more perfect, but because it was delivered on time and met their real needs rather than his perfectionist standards. The irony is that letting go of perfectionism made me more successful than perfectionism ever did, James notes. "I'm doing better work because I'm completing more projects and learning from each one, instead of endlessly polishing a few." James's experience highlights a crucial truth about perfectionism. It often masquerades as quality control while actually serving as a form of self-protection. By keeping projects in an eternal state of almost ready, we avoid the vulnerability of completion and judgment. The latest research supports this view, showing that perfectionist tendencies activate the same brain regions as anxiety and fear responses. This suggests that perfectionism isn't really about quality at all. It's a sophisticated defense mechanism protecting us from the perceived dangers of completion and judgment. Understanding this mechanism is crucial because it reveals why traditional advice about letting go of perfectionism rarely works. You can't simply decide to stop being a perfectionist any more than you can decide to stop feeling anxious. Instead, you need to create systems and frameworks that help you recognize and move past perfectionist blocks. The 90% Solution Framework offers a practical approach to breaking perfectionist paralysis. First, define what 90% success looks like before you begin. Be specific about what constitutes good enough to serve the project's core purpose. Second, identify your perfectionist triggers, the specific points in projects where you tend to get stuck in endless refinement. Third, create external completion criteria that don't rely on your subjective judgment of perfect. Chapter 19. Building Unbreakable Habits. You've seen it countless times. Chaos erupts, normal rules dissolve, and social order crumbles. Yet something extraordinary happened during the 2011 London riots that challenges everything we think we know about human behavior. As looters smashed through a Starbucks storefront, they did something remarkable. They formed a perfect queue. Even in the midst of lawlessness, their deeply ingrained British queuing habit remained unshakable. This wasn't conscious choice. It was pure automated behavior operating beneath awareness. Think about that for a moment. These weren't people making rational decisions. They were literally breaking the law, yet their habits were so deeply wired that they automatically maintained order in disorder. This reveals a profound truth about human behavior. Properly engineered habits don't just persist under pressure. They become stronger. The science behind this phenomenon reveals why most attempts at habit formation fail. Research shows that habits aren't stored in the same brain regions as conscious behaviors. They're encoded in the basal ganglia, an ancient brain structure that operates beneath conscious awareness. This explains why traditional habit-building advice focusing on willpower and conscious choice often fails. We're targeting the wrong neural systems. This insight transformed Tom Brady's approach to performance consistency. Early in his career, Brady struggled with maintaining his training routine when traveling or facing disruptions. His breakthrough came when he realized that trying to maintain a single perfect morning routine was setting himself up for failure. Instead, he developed what he called his multiple redundancy system, a network of interconnected habits with built-in backup plans. I used to think discipline meant forcing myself to follow one perfect routine, Brady explained in a 2019 interview. But real discipline is building systems that work even when everything goes wrong. His approach involved creating 3 different versions of every crucial habit: a full version, a condensed version, and an emergency minimal version. For example, his morning mobility routine had Level 1, full 45-minute pliability workout. Level 2, 15-minute essential movements. Level 3, 5-minute activation sequence. This habit scaffolding approach meant that even on his worst days, he maintained momentum. More importantly, each successful adaptation under pressure actually strengthened his habit system rather than weakening it. This principle helped Brady maintain elite performance well into his 40s, long after most athletes decline. The key insight from Brady's experience isn't just about backup plans. It's about understanding how habits truly form and persist. Research shows that habits become most deeply encoded when they successfully adapt to challenges rather than breaking under pressure. This reveals why most habit-building attempts fail. They're too rigid to survive real-world chaos. This brings us to the concept of anti-fragile habits, routines that actually get stronger when stressed. Just as bones grow stronger in response to stress, habits can be engineered to thrive under pressure rather than break. This requires understanding three key principles. First, habits must have built-in flexibility. Rigid routines shatter under pressure, while adaptable ones bend and strengthen. Second, every habit needs multiple success paths. When one approach is blocked, alternative routes maintain momentum. Third, habit systems must be environment-proof. They need to work anywhere, anytime, under any conditions. Anthony's story perfectly illustrates how these principles transform theory into practice. As a management consultant traveling 200-plus days per year, Anthony struggled maintaining any consistent routines. Hotels, time zones, and unpredictable client demands constantly derailed his best intentions. His breakthrough came when he stopped trying to maintain perfect routines and instead built what he calls his portable habit system. Rather than fighting against changing environments, he created habits that actually leveraged environmental variation to grow stronger. I realized I was approaching it backwards, Anthony explains. Instead of trying to control my environment to support my habits, I needed habits that could thrive in any environment. He developed a three-tier system for each crucial habit. Tier 1. Ideal condition protocol. Full morning routine when time and facilities permit. Includes meditation, exercise, planning, and preparation. Takes 90 minutes, but sets up optimal day. Tier 2. Compressed protocol. Streamlined version maintaining core benefits. Focuses on highest impact elements. Completes in 30 minutes when time is limited. Tier 3. Emergency protocol. Bare minimum actions preserving habit consistency. Can be done anywhere in 5 to 10 minutes. Maintains momentum on worse days. The results transformed Anthony's productivity and well-being. Instead of his habits constantly breaking under pressure, they grew stronger with each adaptation. More importantly, this resilience transferred to other areas of his life. Once you understand how to build unbreakable habits, you can apply it to anything, Anthony notes. The key is building in adaptation from the start, rather than treating it as failure. This approach reveals why traditional habit advice often backfires. When we treat habit disruption as failure, we create a negative feedback loop that weakens the entire system. Instead, we need to engineer habits that expect and thrive on disruption. The latest neuroscience supports this view, showing that habits become most deeply encoded when they successfully adapt to varying conditions. This suggests that some level of productive stress actually strengthens habit formation rather than undermining it. Your challenge now is to identify your most crucial productivity habit and immediately implement 3 specific backup systems to make it virtually unbreakable. Create your own 3-tier protocol. Ideal condition. Protocol, your complete routine when everything goes perfectly. Compressed protocol, a streamlined version maintaining core benefits. Emergency protocol, the minimal actions that preserve momentum. Remember, the goal isn't perfection. It's building a system so resilient that it actually gets stronger under pressure. Your habits should bend, not break. Chapter 20. The Energy Revolution. You're watching it happen in real time, the Mercedes Formula One pit crew executing what seems impossible. In just 1.82 seconds, 4 tires changed, adjustments made, and the car launched back into the race. But the real magic isn't in those blistering seconds of action. It's in what happened moments before, when these elite mechanics were submerged in ice baths between pit stops. This counterintuitive discovery revolutionized pit stop performance. Peak energy management often requires doing exactly the opposite of what seems logical. The Mercedes team had stumbled upon a fundamental truth about human performance. Energy, not time, is the ultimate currency of achievement. While other teams focused on shaving milliseconds through better technique, Mercedes engineering director James Allison took a different approach. He noticed that mechanics' performance declined not from lack of skill or focus, but from micro-fatigue accumulating between stops. The solution wasn't faster movement, it was better energy management. This revelation extends far beyond the racetrack. The latest research in performance psychology shows that most productivity advice gets it exactly backward. We obsess over time management while ignoring the fundamental engine of achievement: our personal energy patterns. Just as Formula One teams discovered that peak performance requires strategic energy oscillation rather than conservation, the same principle applies to any high-stakes performance arena. Hans Zimmer's approach to composing film scores provides a masterclass in this principle. Early in his career, Zimmer struggled with the intense demands of creating original music for major films, often burning out midway through projects. His breakthrough came while scoring Inception in 2010. Instead of trying to maintain steady output through traditional time management, he began treating his creative energy like a wave that needed to oscillate between intense focus and complete disengagement. "I used to think being productive meant sitting at my keyboard for 12 hours straight," Zimmer explained in a 2019 interview. "But I discovered that my best work came when I treated energy like a pulse rather than a steady stream." He developed what he called his wave theory of creative work. During peak energy phases, he would compose intensively for 3 to 4 hours, fully immersing himself in the music. But instead of pushing through when his energy dipped, he would completely disengage, often doing something physically demanding, like swimming or martial arts. This counterintuitive approach of amplifying rather than smoothing out energy fluctuations led to some of his most acclaimed work, including the scores for Interstellar and Dunkirk. The science behind Zimmer's discovery reveals why traditional advice about pacing yourself often backfires. Research shows that our bodies and minds operate optimally through natural oscillation patterns. Trying to maintain steady output actually requires more energy than allowing for strategic peaks and valleys. This insight led to the development of the energy oscillation matrix, a framework for mapping and leveraging natural energy patterns rather than fighting them. The matrix identifies 4 key energy states: peak performance, periods of maximum output and creativity; active recovery, strategic disengagement that rebuilds energy; passive recovery, complete rest and restoration; transition zones, brief periods between states where energy patterns shift. The key insight is that each state serves a crucial function. Trying to eliminate valleys actually reduces peak performance potential. Just as a heart must fully relax between contractions to pump effectively, our energy systems require complete oscillation to operate at maximum capacity. Monica's transformation of her law practice perfectly illustrates how these principles work in the real world. As a high-stakes trial lawyer, she initially approached each case with the traditional legal mindset of sustained effort, 14-hour days of constant focus. The result was predictable: declining performance, missed details, and growing burnout. Her breakthrough came when she began treating courtroom performance like an athletic event rather than an endurance challenge. Working with a performance coach, she developed what she calls her energy-first system. Instead of scheduling her day around time blocks, she mapped her natural energy patterns and built her schedule around them. The results transformed both her performance and her experience of trial work. "I used to think being a great trial lawyer meant pushing through exhaustion," Monica explains. "Now I understand that managing energy is actually my primary job. Everything else flows from that." Her win rate increased dramatically, but more importantly, she found herself thinking more clearly and responding more effectively during critical moments. By treating energy as her fundamental resource rather than time, she discovered she could maintain peak performance through even the longest trials. The key insight from Monica's experience isn't just about taking breaks. It's about understanding that energy management requires active engineering rather than passive response. Just as Formula One teams precisely time their ice bath protocols, peak performers in any field must learn to proactively shape their energy patterns. This requires three fundamental shifts in how we approach productivity. First, we must stop treating energy as a limited resource to be conserved and start seeing it as a renewable force to be strategically oscillated. Second, we need to move beyond simple time-based scheduling to create energy-based architectures for our days. Third, we must learn to distinguish between different types of energy and how they interact. Mental, physical, emotional, and creative energy each follow distinct patterns. The latest research in chronobiology supports this approach, showing that our bodies operate on multiple overlapping energy cycles. By aligning our work patterns with these natural rhythms, rather than fighting them, we can achieve significantly higher output with less effort. Chapter 21. Building Unshakable Systems. The ground trembles beneath Dr. Sandra Lee's feet as she makes the final precise incision. The 7.2 magnitude earthquake rattling San Francisco has knocked out power to most of the city, but in Operating Room 3 of St. Francis Memorial Hospital, the surgeon's hands remain steady. While chaos erupts outside, inside this room, a different reality prevails. One built on systems so robust that even Mother Nature's fury cannot disrupt them. This isn't a story about heroic effort or extraordinary willpower. It's about something far more powerful, systems that make excellence automatic, even in the face of disaster. The human brain loves to celebrate dramatic moments of individual triumph, but what's often overlooked is the invisible architecture that makes such moments possible. When examined closely, Dr. Lee's ability to complete that critical surgery during an earthquake wasn't about courage or skill in the moment. It was about the systematic preparation that made excellence inevitable, even under extreme conditions. The latest research in performance psychology reveals a counterintuitive truth. Truly effective productivity systems don't just resist disruption, they actually become stronger under pressure. This principle, known as anti-fragility, explains why some people and organizations don't just survive chaos, but thrive in it. Taylor Swift's response to losing her master recordings provides a masterclass in this principle. In 2019, Swift faced what many artists would call a career-ending disaster. The sale of her master recordings to a private equity firm meant losing control of her life's work. But rather than crumbling under this setback, Swift activated a pre-established crisis protocol that transformed potential disaster into historic opportunity. "I'd actually been planning for something like this for years," Swift revealed in a 2021 interview. "Not this exact scenario, but any situation where I might lose control of my work." This preparation included maintaining detailed documentation of original arrangements, protecting early demos, and establishing relationships with key collaborators who could be quickly mobilized. What appeared to many as a brilliant, spontaneous response, the decision to re-record her entire catalog, was actually the activation of a system designed to turn crisis into opportunity. Swift's Taylor's version re-recordings didn't just reclaim her work, they created new value, with many of the re-recorded albums outperforming their originals. The key insight from Swift's experience isn't just about having a backup plan, it's about building systems that actually improve under pressure. Her crisis response protocol didn't just preserve value, it created new opportunities that wouldn't have existed without the crisis. This principle of productive anti-fragility, building systems that grow stronger under stress, represents a fundamental shift in how we approach productivity. Traditional productivity systems focus on maintaining performance despite challenges. Anti-fragile systems use those challenges as fuel for improvement. The science behind this approach reveals why conventional productivity advice often fails under pressure. Research shows that systems built primarily for efficiency tend to be fragile, while systems that incorporate strategic redundancy and adaptation mechanisms become more robust through challenge. This insight led to the development of the Crisis Enhanced Performance Protocol, CEPP, a framework for building productivity systems that thrive under pressure. The protocol identifies three key elements: redundancy mechanisms, strategic backup systems that provide multiple paths to completion; adaptation triggers, pre-established protocols for pivoting strategies based on specific conditions; growth catalysts, elements that convert disruption into opportunity. The key insight is that each component must be established during periods of stability, making responses automatic when crisis hits. Just as a vaccine prepares the immune system before illness strikes, these systems must be built before they're needed. Daniel's transformation of his restaurant business perfectly illustrates how these principles work in the real world. As a successful restaurant owner in Seattle, Daniel had built efficient systems for normal operations. But when multiple crises hit simultaneously, a key supplier bankruptcy, a staff shortage, and flooding from a burst pipe, these efficient systems crumbled under pressure. His breakthrough came when he began treating disruption as inevitable rather than exceptional. Working with a business coach, he developed what he calls his pressure-activated advantage system. Instead of creating single optimal processes, he built multiple redundant systems for critical operations. Rather than maximizing efficiency, he intentionally built in spare capacity that could be activated during crises. He established clear triggers for when to activate alternative systems, removing emotion from crisis response. The results transformed both his business performance and his experience as a leader. "I used to think being a great restaurant owner meant preventing problems," Daniel explains. "Now I understand that it's about building systems that turn problems into advantages." His new approach was tested during the unprecedented challenges of 2020. While many restaurants struggled to adapt, Daniel's systems allowed him to pivot quickly, actually increasing revenue through multiple disruptions. His pre-established protocols for menu simplification, staff cross-training, and delivery integration activated automatically when triggered by specific conditions. The key insight from Daniel's experience isn't just about having backup plans. It's about understanding that truly robust systems require built-in redundancy and adaptation mechanisms. Just as nature builds redundancy into critical biological systems, we have 2 kidneys, 2 lungs. Effective productivity systems must incorporate strategic redundancy. This requires 3 fundamental shifts in how we approach system design. First, we must stop seeing efficiency as the primary goal and start building in strategic redundancy that can be activated under pressure. Second, we need to move beyond simple backup plans to create complete alternative operating systems that can be switched on automatically when needed. Third, we must learn to identify and establish specific triggers that activate these systems without requiring conscious decision-making during crisis moments. Recent research in organizational psychology supports this approach, showing that systems designed with strategic redundancy and clear activation triggers consistently outperform more efficient but rigid systems during disruption. Chapter 22: The Power of Progressive Loading. Inside a high-performance research lab, Dr. Elena Martinez stares at her data in disbelief. The results contradict everything we thought we knew about strength training and human performance. Athletes who never attempted their maximum weight not only avoided injury, but actually gained more strength than those pushing their limits. The secret? A methodical 1% daily increase that seemed almost trivially small in the moment, but produced extraordinary results over time. This discovery reaches far beyond athletics, offering a revolutionary insight into how sustainable progress really works. Just as those athletes built unprecedented strength through tiny increments, you can build extraordinary productivity through the same principle of progressive loading. The human brain, much like muscles, responds better to gradual, systematic increases than dramatic jumps. When you attempt too much too soon, your neural circuits trigger protection mechanisms, what you experience as procrastination, resistance, or burnout. But when you progressively load your cognitive capacity, something remarkable happens. Your brain adapts and grows stronger without triggering these defensive responses. Recent neuroscience research reveals why this works. Each time you engage in focused work, you strengthen neural pathways associated with that activity. But just like muscle fibers, these pathways need time to recover and rebuild stronger. Push too hard, and you trigger a stress response that actually inhibits growth. Progress at the right pace, and you create optimal conditions for neural adaptation. Beyoncé's preparation for her historic 2018 Coachella performance provides a masterclass in this principle. Following the birth of her twins, she faced the monumental challenge of preparing for what would become one of the most physically demanding performances in music festival history. Rather than immediately attempting full rehearsals, she implemented what her team called the build-up protocol. "We started with just 15 minutes of dance rehearsal," her choreographer Jaquel Knight revealed. "Everyone thought we were crazy, that we'd never be ready, but Beyoncé understood something crucial about sustainable progress. Each day they added just 1 minute to the rehearsal time. This seemingly insignificant increase meant that by the 3-month mark, they were completing full 2-hour rehearsals with perfect execution." The key insight from Beyoncé's approach wasn't just about physical stamina, it was about neural adaptation. By increasing demand so gradually, her brain and body could adapt without triggering stress responses that would have hindered progress. This same principle applies directly to cognitive performance and productivity. The science behind this approach reveals 3 critical factors. Neural adaptation rate. Your brain can build new neural pathways approximately 1 to 3% faster each day, without triggering protective resistance. Recovery. Window. Optimal cognitive growth occurs when you increase demands just beyond your current capacity, but well below your maximum effort. Consistency. Threshold. Daily micro increases maintain momentum better than larger weekly or monthly jumps. This understanding led to the development of the Productivity Progressive Overload (PPO) framework, a systematic approach to building extraordinary cognitive capacity through micro increases. The framework identifies 3 key elements. Baseline establishment, accurately identifying your current sustainable work capacity. Increment. Selection, choosing the right size for daily increases. Recovery integration, building in appropriate rest periods to allow for neural consolidation. The crucial insight is that sustainable progress isn't about dramatic changes or heroic efforts. It's about systematic, almost imperceptible increases that compound over time. Just as water can carve through rock not through force but through persistent microactions, you can build extraordinary productivity through consistent small increases. Connor Walsh's transformation of his PhD research process perfectly illustrates how these principles work in practice. As a doctoral candidate in theoretical physics at MIT, Connor struggled with the overwhelming demands of dissertation writing. His initial attempts to force himself to write for long periods led to burnout and procrastination. Working with his academic advisor, he developed what he calls his quantum progress protocol. Instead of attempting to write for hours, he started with just 50 words per day, an amount so small it felt almost meaningless. Each day, he increased his word count by just 10 words, an increment so tiny it triggered no resistance. He maintained this progression religiously, never skipping a day, but also never pushing beyond the scheduled increase. The results transformed both his productivity and his experience of the writing process. I went from dreading my dissertation to actually looking forward to writing, Connor explains. By month 3, I was consistently writing 2,000 words daily without any sense of strain or resistance. The key insight from Connor's experience isn't just about writing, it's about understanding how sustainable progress actually works. By removing the pressure of immediate high performance and focusing instead on systematic micro-increases, he built capacity without triggering resistance. This requires 3 fundamental shifts in how we approach productivity. First, we must abandon the all-or-nothing mindset and embrace the power of minimal viable progress. Second, we need to trust that tiny increases, maintained consistently, will compound into extraordinary results. Third, we must learn to measure progress, not by daily achievements, but by progressive capacity building over time. Recent research in cognitive psychology supports this approach, showing that systematic micro-increases in cognitive load produce better long-term results than attempting to maintain consistently high performance. Your challenge today is to identify your current baseline for your most important productivity metric, whether that's words written, problem solved, or hours of focused work. Then, design a 30-day progression plan with daily micro-increases so small they feel almost insignificant. Remember, the power lies not in the size of each increase, but in their relentless consistency. What tiny increment will you commit to today? Chapter 23. Rewiring Your Productivity Mindset. The neuroscientists stared at their screens in disbelief. The before and after brain scans were dramatically different, yet only 3 hours had passed between them. The subject hadn't changed their behavior, taken any medication, or undergone any intervention. They had simply shifted how they thought about procrastination. This groundbreaking discovery revealed something extraordinary. Your brain physically rewires itself based on your beliefs about productivity before you take a single action. The neural pathways associated with procrastination literally change shape and strength depending on whether you view it as an enemy to be fought or a signal to be understood. This insight shatters conventional wisdom about productivity transformation. While most approaches focus on changing behaviors or implementing new systems, the real power lies in reconstructing the mental architecture that governs those behaviors. Your beliefs about productivity aren't just abstract thoughts. They're physical structures in your brain that either support or sabotage your success. Recent advances in neuroplasticity research reveal 3 critical insights about belief-driven brain change. First, belief shifts create immediate neural reorganization, often within hours. Second, these changes occur independently of behavior modification. Third, the new neural patterns become self-reinforcing, creating an upward spiral of improvement. Matthew McConaughey's remarkable career transformation provides a masterclass in the power of belief architecture. In the early 2000s, McConaughey found himself trapped in a cycle of romantic comedies that left him creatively unfulfilled. Rather than immediately rejecting new rom-com offers, which would have been financially risky, he developed what he called his reverse procrastination mindset. I started viewing the delay between where I was and where I wanted to be, not as procrastination, but as strategic preparation, McConaughey revealed in a rare interview about his process. Each romantic comedy wasn't a distraction from my real path. It was giving me the tools, platform, and financial security to make my eventual transition sustainable. This mindset shift proved transformative. Instead of feeling stuck, McConaughey saw each project as a deliberate step in his evolution. He used the time to study serious dramatic roles, develop new skills, and build relationships with different directors, all while maintaining his commercial success. This strategic delay mindset ultimately led to his career-defining roles in Dallas Buyers Club and True Detective. The key insight from McConaughey's experience wasn't just about career strategy. It was about how changing his beliefs about delay transformed his entire relationship with time and progress. By reframing what others might see as procrastination into purposeful preparation, he created a new mental architecture that supported his long-term vision. This understanding led to the development of the Belief Architecture Framework, a systematic approach to rebuilding your productivity mindset from the ground up. The framework identifies 3 core levels of belief reconstruction. Foundation. Beliefs. Your fundamental assumptions about productivity and human potential. Support beliefs. The specific beliefs that either reinforce or undermine your goals. Action beliefs. The immediate thoughts that drive or inhibit specific behaviors. Research in cognitive psychology reveals that transforming beliefs at each level creates a cascading effect, automatically shifting behaviors without relying on willpower or discipline. This explains why some people seem to achieve extraordinary results with apparent ease. They've built a belief architecture that makes productivity natural rather than forced. Jenna's transformation of her struggling tech startup illustrates how belief architecture can revolutionize not just individual productivity, but entire organizational cultures. As founder and CEO, she had tried everything to improve team performance: new project management systems, incentive programs, even office redesigns. Nothing created lasting change. Working with an organizational psychologist, Jenna discovered that her company's productivity challenges stemmed not from processes, but from deeply embedded belief systems. She developed what she called the Mindset Reset Protocol. Instead of focusing on changing behaviors, she led her team through a systematic examination of their beliefs about productivity, deadlines, and potential. They identified and challenged limiting beliefs that had become part of the company culture, like creativity requires complete freedom and pressure kills innovation. Together, they constructed new empowering beliefs based on evidence and possibility rather than fear and limitation. The results transformed the company. Within 3 months, project completion rates increased by 64%, while employee satisfaction scores reached all-time highs. Most importantly, the improvements proved sustainable because they were rooted in fundamental belief changes rather than surface-level behavioral modifications. The key insight from Jenna's experience is that belief reconstruction creates change that maintains itself. Unlike behavior-based approaches that require constant reinforcement, transformed beliefs automatically generate supportive thoughts and actions. Recent research in neuroplasticity supports this approach, showing that belief-driven brain changes are both faster and more permanent than behavior-driven changes. When you shift a core belief, your brain literally rebuilds itself to support that new perspective, creating neural pathways that make productive action more natural and automatic. This understanding reveals 3 critical principles for productive belief reconstruction. Identity-based transformation. Change how you see yourself rather than just what you do. Evidence engineering. Actively collect and highlight evidence that supports your new beliefs. Network effect. Surround yourself with people who embody and reinforce your desired beliefs. The practical application of these principles requires a systematic approach to belief auditing and reconstruction. Start by examining your current productivity beliefs through these lenses. Source analysis. Where did this belief come from? Is it based on evidence or assumption? Impact evaluation. How does this belief affect your actions and results? Alternative exploration. What other beliefs could be equally or more true? Your immediate challenge is to identify the 3 most limiting beliefs you hold about productivity and procrastination. Write them down, then use the following reframing questions for each. What evidence do I have that this belief might not be completely true? How would I act differently if I believed the opposite? What new belief would better serve my goals and potential? Take action on these reframes within the next 24 hours by actively seeking evidence that supports your new, empowering beliefs. Remember, your brain begins rewiring itself the moment you commit to a new perspective. You don't have to wait for perfect conditions or complete certainty to begin this transformation. Chapter 24. Engineering Your Productive Identity. You stare at what appears to be an old photograph of yourself as a child, diligently working at a small desk, completely absorbed in the task at hand. The image stirs something deep within you, a sense of recognition, of possibility. But here's the twist. This photo doesn't actually exist. It's a sophisticated digital creation, part of a groundbreaking psychological experiment that would challenge everything we understand about productivity and personal transformation. In this remarkable study, participants were shown carefully crafted childhood photographs of themselves displaying highly productive behaviors, completing homework early, organizing their toys methodically, or helping others with tasks. The results were astounding. Even after learning the photos were fabricated, participants showed immediate and lasting improvements in their productivity levels, with some maintaining these changes months after the experiment concluded. This fascinating discovery reveals something profound about the nature of productivity. Our actions aren't just driven by habits, systems, or willpower. They're fundamentally shaped by who we believe ourselves to be. Identity, it turns out, is the master key to lasting transformation. Consider how this plays out in your own life. When you procrastinate on an important task, is it really about time management or motivation? Or is it because, at some deep level, you don't fully see yourself as someone who takes immediate action? The gap between who you are and who you believe yourself to be creates a powerful force field that either propels you forward or holds you back. Recent advances in psychological research have revealed 3 critical insights about identity-driven behavior. First, identity changes create immediate behavioral shifts without conscious effort. Second, these changes tend to be self-reinforcing, creating upward spirals of improvement. Third, identity-based transformations show remarkably high stability over time, compared to habit-based changes. Robert Downey Jr.'s extraordinary career resurrection provides a masterclass in identity engineering. By 2001, Downey had become virtually unhireable in Hollywood due to his well-documented struggles with substance abuse and reliability issues. Multiple arrests, failed rehabilitation attempts, and burned professional bridges had created what seemed like an insurmountable obstacle to any future success. Rather than focusing solely on changing his behaviors or developing better habits, Downey undertook a complete identity reconstruction. "I had to stop being an actor trying to be reliable," he revealed in a rare interview about his transformation process. "I had to become reliability itself." This subtle but crucial distinction drove every aspect of his recovery and career rebuilding. Instead of treating punctuality and professionalism as things he needed to do, he made them core elements of who he was. He developed what he called his identity anchors, specific behaviors that reinforced his new self-image as the most dependable professional in Hollywood. "Every time I arrived on set early, every time I knew my lines cold, every time I stayed late to help the crew, these weren't just actions," Downey explained. "They were statements about who I had become." This identity-first approach created a self-reinforcing cycle. Each professional action strengthened his new identity, which in turn made future professional actions more natural and automatic. The results transformed not just his career, but the entire entertainment industry. His journey from liability to the linchpin of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, one of the most successful film franchises in history, demonstrated the extraordinary power of identity engineering. This understanding led to the development of the Identity Engineering Protocol, a systematic approach to reconstructing your productive self-image from the ground up. The protocol identifies 3 core levels of identity work. Core identity beliefs: your fundamental assumptions about who you are and what you're capable of. Identity behaviors: the specific actions that either reinforce or contradict your desired identity. Identity environment: the external elements that support or undermine your new self-image. Research in behavioral psychology reveals that transforming identity at each level creates a cascading effect, automatically shifting behaviors without relying on willpower or discipline. This explains why some people seem to achieve extraordinary results with apparent ease. They've built an identity that makes productivity natural rather than forced. Isabella's transformation from perpetual procrastinator to published author illustrates how identity engineering can revolutionize productivity. After years of calling herself an aspiring writer and struggling to complete her first novel, she made a crucial discovery. Her self-image was actively sabotaging her progress. Working with a writing coach, Isabella developed what she called her author identity protocol. Instead of trying to find time to write, she began structuring her entire day around her identity as a professional author. She transformed her workspace from a casual desk to a dedicated writing studio, creating an environment that reinforced her new identity. She started introducing herself as an author rather than someone who wanted to write a book, making her identity shift public and real. The results were remarkable. Within 6 months, she completed the first draft of her novel, something she'd been attempting for years. More importantly, the changes proved sustainable because they were rooted in who she had become rather than what she was trying to do. The key insight from Isabella's experience is that identity transformation creates change that maintains itself. Unlike behavior-based approaches that require constant reinforcement, transformed identity automatically generates supportive thoughts and actions. Recent research in neuroplasticity supports this approach, showing that identity-based brain changes are both faster and more permanent than behavior-driven changes. When you shift your core identity, your brain literally rebuilds itself to support that new self-image, creating neural pathways that make productive action more natural and automatic. This understanding reveals 3 critical principles for productive identity engineering. Core identity crafting: consciously design your new productive self-image in vivid detail. Identity evidence building: actively collect and highlight evidence that supports your new identity. Identity integration: align your environment and relationships to reinforce your new self-image. The practical application of these principles requires a systematic approach to identity, auditing, and reconstruction. Start by examining your current productivity identity through these lenses. Origin analysis: where did your current productivity identity come from? Impact evaluation: how does this identity affect your actions and results? Alignment. Assessment: does your current identity support or undermine your goals? Your immediate challenge is to begin your identity transformation right now. Take out a piece of paper and write a detailed description of your new productive identity. Be specific. How does this person think? How do they approach tasks? What do they believe about themselves? Then, identify 3 actions you can take in the next 24 hours that align with this new identity. These actions should be small but significant. Remember, you're not just doing tasks, you're making statements about who you've become. Finally, share your new identity with someone you trust. Making your transformation public creates accountability and makes the change more real. Remember, you're not just changing what you do, you're becoming someone new. Your brain is already beginning to rewire itself around this new self-image. The person you're becoming is already there, waiting to emerge. Take that first identity-aligned action now, and watch how naturally the rest begins to follow. Conclusion. You close this audiobook, and for a moment something feels different. Not just the familiar surge of motivation that comes with finishing a self-improvement book. This runs deeper. Through this audiobook, you've discovered that procrastination was never your enemy. It was a sophisticated response mechanism, a signal trying to guide you toward greater understanding of yourself. But what happens now? How do you ensure this transformation sticks and continues to grow stronger over time? The answer lies in understanding that this isn't the end of your journey. It's actually the beginning of something much more powerful. Looking ahead, you'll face new challenges and opportunities. There will be moments when old patterns try to reassert themselves, but you're now equipped with something far more powerful than just techniques or strategies. You have a deep understanding of how your mind works and a proven framework for navigating any productivity challenge. Here's what makes this moment particularly powerful. You're not just leaving this audiobook with a set of tools. You're emerging with a completely new operating system for approaching challenges and opportunities. Your understanding of procrastination has become a lens through which you can analyze and optimize every aspect of your life. Your transformation journey has equipped you with everything you need to make this commitment real. You understand the science behind procrastination. You have practical tools for maintaining momentum, and most importantly, you've developed a new relationship with productivity itself. The words of this audiobook have given you a map, but the territory ahead is yours to explore. Your journey from here isn't about perfection. It's about progress, understanding, and continuous growth. Remember, procrastination was never your enemy. It was a teacher, guiding you toward a deeper understanding of yourself. Now, equipped with this understanding, you're ready to not just overcome procrastination, but to transform it into one of your greatest allies in achieving your most important goals. Take that piece of paper now. Write your identity declaration. Make it specific, make it powerful, and most importantly, make it true to who you've become through this journey. This isn't the end. It's your new beginning. Thank you for listening and for investing in yourself. I believe in you. Your potential is endless. Now go out there and create the life you deserve.